for what will be an exciting matchup ahead. Danya, always a pleasure to be with you. Now, let me ask your opinion on this match. We were just behind the scenes talking to players, making sure everything was settled. This is bound to be a great match, but who do you have taking this one between these two fighters?
Robert, you know how much I love that question. You know how good I am at answering it. And I think that in my experience watching these matches, I feel like specific experience playing Blitz and Bullet online is probably the biggest X factor. So I'm going to have to go with Eric here as the very, very slight favorite. With that being said, I was very impressed with the way Alina played in her first round matchup against Krzysztof Zulecki, who is an incredibly strong player in his own right. So I think this is going to be a very close match. Seatbelts, fastened, and mandatory, Robert.
Well, Eric did beat Ellie Pates 17-7 in that opening round matchup. It was quite a decisive victory in his favor. I think she got tilted. She said as much in the post-match interview. And for Alina Kashlinskaya, she went 13-11 over Chess Explained. That was one of our epic first-round battles. Of course, we also saw Danny Wrench and Teddy Coleman go to extra time, and that ended in Teddy's favor. So we remember fondly that opening round matchup with Alina Kashlinskaya. She's clearly in form when it comes to some of these time scrambles, but you're right, Eric is far more experienced. He has a very loyal, devoted following, and I'm sure we'll see those people in the chat today.
Absolutely, we will. And we should also mention that Eric has incredibly strong opening preparation. I've always been impressed with it. He sometimes plays openings that appear to be very innocuous. Like, he's, of course, a champion of the London system. Many people know that. But all of his openings have a lot of bite to them, and he takes that very, very seriously. So I think that preparation is going to come in handy today. Of course, Alina winning the first match, and now she's able to make some adjustments. So I'm sure she approached the games from her first round match very seriously. She's made the necessary conclusions, and it's almost like she's married to a pretty decent player who may or may not have helped her with some opening preparation as well. So I'm very excited to actually see what the openings in this match look like and who wins that particular sub battle.
Yeah, it is interesting, as you said, because Eric Rosen, he sort of plays these offbeat London-type positions, but he knows them extremely well. He knows all of the tricks and traps involved in that opening. Alina Kashlinskaya, a very principled player. She is married to Radislav Wojtaszek, who is an elite grandmaster, a super grandmaster, but she herself has shown that she has exquisite opening preparation. I mentioned during her previous match that in the Isle of Man 2018, she drew Nishikori, she drew Vladimir Krumnik, she beat Sam Sevian. I mean, do I need to say any more of her results? She's on the cusp of becoming a grandmaster. So by FIDE rating, she is the highest rated player in the field. Some of the other players maybe have had higher peak ratings, as we saw Anna Zatonski peaked at 25-37 FIDE. But Alina Kashlinskaya, when she's playing over the board these days, she's an absolute force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. I mean, she's capable of beating anyone. When she's on fire, she is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. So very, very excited to see how this match unfolds.
And we have liftoff right now. So you don't have to be excited to see. You get to see right now. And we see Alina Kashlinskaya with the white pieces. She plays her very typical. She starts with the queen's pawn, and now we have a trade on d5. So what do you think about, we'll see how the next few moves go, Danya. But Eric already in just a very calm setup here from the black side.
Yeah, we have a Carlsbad Structure, which has been around for over 100 years. This has been so well studied. White's immediately clear plan is to basically play f3 and e4 to prepare the central thrust. Black has played on the queen side. Black is also just incredibly solid overall. We see them executing moves very, very quickly. Eric trying to get his knight to b4, Alina stopping that. Very solid position for both sides, really. This is going to be a maneuvering game, but it can get very, very tactical if the center is opened.
Right, and now the knight comes to e6, and white has ideas with f3 and e4, where you just try to say, I'm going to expand here in the center. If you start capturing me on e4, you open up the f file after f takes e4, and your knight on f6 is currently pinned to the queen on d8.
Correct. Exactly. And so we see Alina bringing a rook to d1, and it's very important to time the move f3 correctly, because if you mistime it or you play it prematurely, black can counterstrike with a move like c5, or there's a bunch of tactics that white center can crumble very, very quickly. So a lot of Carlsbad is this cat and mouse game where white's trying to find the right timing to play f3 for black's trying to stop her. and develop counterplay in his own right.
Right. And we see knight g5 play. This is the Casa Corley. He had that remarkable victory. I remember these knights on f6 and g5. It allows you to play knight f to e4. And at some point, you are going to sacrifice your knight on g5. That's sort of the intention here, where if this knight on f6 is not in the way, you play a move like knight takes h3, and then the bishop on h4 is done.
I really like the move knight g5. Also, we're stopping f3 directly because e3 is going to hang. I mean, this is just a sampling. Eric has all of these opening ideas, as you mentioned, Robert. Some of them look offbeat, but they always carry a bite. And Alina, very principled move f4, chasing that knight away. So is Black going to take on h3 or no? He goes knight e6. But now, of course, White has weakened herself as well.
Yeah, I liked your idea with knight takes h3 check. Unfortunately, I feel like this is a position where it's more hope than actual potential success. If you just scroll back here, knight h3, g3, bishop h3, you're hitting my rook on f1, you're hitting my pawn on e3, but I can play rook f3 and at once defend both of those problems.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking of taking on e3 after g takes h3, but I agree, it's a little bit speculative. But now this move e4 by Alina. What if Eric just takes on e4, goes bishop e7, and claims that, I have this d5 square? How is this going to unfold? And
you're absolutely right. This isolated pawn here on d4 can't push. You point out the d5 square. Whenever somebody has an isolated pawn, you want to plant a pony right in front of it or another piece. But here, the knight on f6 can come to d5 at the right moment. And Eric also playing very quickly. So it's not an easy position to play, but he has made it look relatively easy with his knight out to g5 and back to e6. And right now, Alina offering some trades. And can she punch through d5? That's one of the essential questions here. And she plays bishop c4 just for that purpose. I want to play d4 to d5 next, open up my rook on d1 as well as my bishop landing on the d5 square, where the pawn on b7 will be a potential target. And Danya, it seems like Black is a little bit cramped, a little bit underdeveloped. But White has a potential issue of being overextended. We look at the e3 square.
Knight c7 could be a try here as well. Yeah.
I like your knight c7 move, just saying you're not getting d5 in so easily. And then I'll play bishop to e6 or knight c7, drop back, trade bishops, cover that d5 square.
Yeah, this pawn on f4 is sort of sticking out like a sore thumb. And yes, Black is kind of cramped. He's got to watch this diagonal, a2 to g8. There's some tactics on the g6 square. But after knight c7, if he can get his bishop out to, let's say, f5 or e6, White has maybe a dynamic initiative, but all of the static advantages are in Black's favor here. So this is going to be really a question of whether Alina can make something happen in the next couple of moves. I think maybe knight c7, knight c3. Maybe White's not much worse positionally, but still, Eric taking his time here. Maybe there's another move, or maybe something is scaring him off about knight c7. I'm not sure.
Maybe there's f5 for White. I was wondering if that was what was scaring him off. I know that closes down your bishop a2, bishop b1 checkmating idea, and now bishop b1 is very tempting, but then the knight will retreat to f8, because once the knight gets to f8, h7 is under the knight's control. You're not going to mate me. I have the open e-file. I'm happy as Black. But I was wondering if that was what the issue was, that somehow, if we just go back a second, knight c7, f5 says, where's your bishop on c8 going here? And you can still play b5, bishop b7, but I don't really like that idea regardless of when it's played. And as we return to the game position here, like you look at that bishop on b7, you desperately need a move like c5 or b4, bishop a6 at some moment to make that bishop even look remotely useful. But Danya, I don't see how that's going to happen. Especially
what about knight takes d4?
Knight takes d4, that's a pawn.
I'm struggling to figure out what Alina has in mind against that move.
I want to play knight h5, sack a piece. So my idea is if you take on c2, I take on f6, g6, rook d7, but I don't think I'm quick enough to be
bishop
attacked.
C. And that's actually interesting. Where are you getting this creativity from, Robert?
You're an inspiration to me, Danya.
Man, yeah, you're making me emotional. Please don't make me this emotional. But now c5. No, this is definitely going. This is going haywire for Alina, because now, Robert, you mentioned that bishop. That bishop is activated. Look at that monster on d4. There was something went wrong here for Alina. She miscalculated something, and now I think this is just lost for White. All of Black's pieces perfectly coordinated, and he's a pawn up.
It looks terrible, if I'm being completely honest with you, because the bishop on b7, as you point out, an excellent piece. The knight on d4, a protected outpost there, and it's not easy to kick that thing. You can't get a knight e2 move, which is what you would need. White's best chance is if somehow you can initiate a series of trades and then get that knight off d4 and play a pawn down. That still gives Black all of the chance in the world to convert this into a victory. But at least in that case, you have some chances to hold the game. And after queen f4, I'm thinking about rook e2.
Yep. Rook e2, rook f2, knight f3 check is very strong. I think rook e2 might just bust through the gates.
I love it when you spy tactics.
Spy tactics.
You just unleashed the Danya beast that we all know and love there.
Well, my tactics work about 1 time out of 10 in real games. But as we like to say, Robert, sacrificing other people's pieces, easy.
It is easy. And I love rook e2. We both saw it. Oh, queen c6 played. The point was the knight couldn't take on e2 because when the black knight landed on e2, it would have been a fork. And right now, she's still in this game. And look at Eric's clock. He's down to 1 minute 30 seconds. We saw in his first round match against Ellie Pates that he was the one who was ahead in the clock and sometimes had dubious positions, but he held thanks to good clock management and defensive tenacity and resourcefulness. So right now, I don't see the clear breakthrough for Eric. He's going to spend some serious time in this moment, but Danya, a minute 15 to 2 minutes 15, and queen f4 needed to play rook e2 there. And this is exactly what I was
rook e3 was good with the queen on c6 also. Yeah, you were mentioning the possibility of trades. Slowly white gets back in the game. The problem is that even after the queens are off the board, I just don't see how white can hold the position together.
Right. It's not easy, of course not, but it's perhaps manageable. And right now there's these knight discovery attacks. So f6, you can even take that pawn because the rook can't capture on f6. And the reason why is the rook on d1 needs a defender, as any knight discovery will pick up this rook on d1. So if, for example, knight e2 check, the rook were not already protecting d1, you win that rook. So that's why f6, you can even capture it. Rook to g5, of course, and there it is. If king h2, I don't have knight e2 yet because now the black knight is pinned to the rook on d8. So h5, h4 is one idea to try to take advantage of the fact that the knight on g3 is pinned to the pawn on g2 with the bishop staring down along with the rook.
Yeah, this is not easy. G6, but now that pawn on f6 is like a thorn. Rook d e1, and then all of a sudden white's threatening bishop takes f7 check and rook e7.
Oh, I like it.
The thing is, and for example, rook d e1, black can go c4 to try to shut down the bishop, and then Alina could go a4. It's all about kind of, with 49 seconds on the clock, you just have to find one move at a time to pose small tactical tasks for black, and soon you'll find his time evaporating. So definitely Alina in the game, but she's got to be very precise here in how she handles this opportunity. I think rook d1 is actually quite annoying, and there we have it.
And rook d1 is great, and as Danya said, and we can analyze it very quickly, the threat is bishop takes f7 check first, not rook e7 first. And c4 stopped it just to show everybody, if you made some random like b4, bishop f7 check, king f7, rook e7 check, you pick up this bishop on b7. So we go back to the live game here, and we see that c4 closes the bishop down. Rook e7 still comes, but without the same power. It doesn't have the same punch as when the bishop were attacking this pawn f7.
Yeah, I thought a4 was interesting, but now I like what Alina's doing. She's trying to get her bishop to e4. The problem is bishop e4 meets with h4. Now, even that is not lost. I mean, knight h1. She goes rook f4, though. I really like what she's doing here. Look at her bringing all these pieces in. Knight e6. Rook can drop back to f2, and then the knight has this e4 square. This is definitely still better for black, but Eric has made a hash of this, and he's down to 20 seconds.
And I don't want to call myself a prophet or anything like that, but exactly what I was saying is happening here. It's getting difficult. She's putting up tenacious defense. Watch out for a rook takes e6 in a timely moment where my f-pawn springs free. Not here, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Sometimes you sack an exchange to create a passed pawn. Maybe bishop e4, like you were saying, just to trade some pieces and hope that you can survive this pawn down at endgame. And the rook on e7 is a very nice piece for white. How do we activate this bishop? I would love to get my bishop back on the a2 to f7 square, but I can't get it with pawn c4.
Well, as the Nostradamus among the two of us, maybe you should be the one answering the question. In fact, I mean, given your new status as a prophet, I'd like you to tell me what the first move is going to be in the next game. I mean, there's so many questions I have for you about my life and how it's going to unfold. But yeah, this bishop on c2, bishop takes g6. I keep looking at that move, but can never quite make it work. Maybe a4. Maybe try to open a second front. But now bishop g6 and rook d1, it gets very sharp.
Yep, but h4 was always hanging, so you were able to take on h4 even in that position. Instead of knight e5, knight takes h4 was a move. Bishop g6 and then rook takes e8 check.
It was yeah.
Rook takes e8. Rook takes e8. Oh,
an f7. Okay, but was that winning though?
Oh my gosh.
Bishop g6.
Bishop g6.
Maybe
yeah, and then rook g7.
But we got to watch out because rook d1 comes at the end.
And then g4.
Oh my, this is where I get stressed out.
Yep, G4 only move to make space for your king because now your king could run away.
Like draw. No, when the king runs to f4, white should be winning here. Look at the king activity. All of a sudden,
the pawn at f6 is very, very strong here. King f5. Rook f4 is way better. Nice move. Rook h6.
Oh yeah, shoot. F7. I think
F7. Oh, F7. Rook G8 was winning this. I was going for Rook H6. I said it. She played it, and now all of a sudden Eric Rosen should survive this. He gives up his
draw
pawn.
C3. Rook
H8.
Rook H2.
Rook H8. Yeah.
Okay, now I can push for a little longer. He's got 1 second. He's stressing me out.
Yeah, she can, but the thing is, it's such an easy draw. You just put the black king in front of the pawn, and there's no way Eric is going to botch. Just look at that.
Yeah, you can pre-move a bunch of moves here, basically. Yeah, exactly. This is a draw. Wow.
And there we see a draw by agreement. And what a game that was. I'm going to pull up that last game once more. We'll show it in the analysis board with the live game. The opening stages take shape. But we're going to pull this up here because you saw, I shouldn't say we. You were the one who found it. First, these great bishop takes g6 ideas by Alina. She survived this way. And not only was she surviving, she was winning this position because had she played after h3, pawn f7, followed up with rook to g8 check, forcing through a queen, she would have actually won that first game. But that was a very back and forth battle. Eric clearly the upper hand out of the opening. And now we're in the second game here. And Alina not just survived, she had a chance to win, but ultimately there was peace on the board. Whoa,
I think at some point Alina had around 20 seconds and she kind of got into time scramble mode, maybe a little bit too early. That was when, the end game madness was happening and she had those chances to go for checkmate. So that's an adjustment she could think about mating. This is a very sharp line of the London system, pretty well known. After queen takes h5, there's a lot of theory here. White basically sacks the pawn on d4 and goes like h4, h5 as far as I remember, or knight f, and he's just going for checkmate here. So this is an example of how sharp the London system can get and how venomous it could be, especially if black isn't up to date with recent theoretical developments.
Yeah, and this is just craziness, right? You have a g6 Fianchetto type pawn structure, but the black bishop is outside of the pawn chain, which makes it a target. And that's why h4 comes in. It hits the bishop immediately, but soon it's going to go to h5, take on g6, and just crack open what looks like a formidable defensive setup for black on the king side. Once I get that rook open on the h file, it can spell big trouble. And look at Alina. She takes on c3 after some serious thought here. And now Eric is thinking, and this is one of those interesting moments down here where you and I both have played many tournaments over the board and our opponents coming in with quick preparation. And then all of a sudden you make a move and they stop and think. It's either because you made a bad move or because your opponent doesn't know the line more deeply than that moment. So I'm curious to see how this game ends up, because does Eric know this to its completion, or kind of how deep does he really know it?
I think he knows it quite deep. I mean, DC, from my limited analysis, I don't really remember that move, but usually in the situation you mentioned, I get terrified that I made a huge blunder because they didn't consider it in their preparation. That must mean it's a terrible move. Now here, I definitely am not envious of Alina's position. That pawn on g5 and on e5, those are like crab claws, just clamping down on black's king side. It's paving the way for something like queen f4. And Eric very patiently goes a3 to stop queen b4. I think the computer probably would give something resembling equality, but practically speaking, so much easier to play with the white pieces here, despite the absence of a pawn.
Yeah, because white's plan is simple. Rook h6, move your king, bring your rook to h1, win the h7, pawn checkmate on h8, and then other rook coming to h7. Did I say that more or less accurately?
You basically, that's just like my life plan. Make $1 billion, buy a penthouse in Manhattan, retire, have a great life. Easy. I don't know why everyone doesn't do that.
Sounds about right. But, black could have thrown in an h5 type of move, but the problem is white probably wouldn't take it en passant. As soon as you play h5, I can't take en passant, right? I can just steal that pawn and go for the attack. And, well, now after queen h4, she has to play h5 to stop this checkmate. And that's the perfect moment to do so, right? If queen h4, h5, if you take en passant, I get to trade queens, and you don't have an attack and you're losing a piece. And even if you weren't losing the piece on d3, pretend that wasn't there, just your attack's gone. We traded queens, and now my king can hide on h7.
Yeah, white needs to be very precise here. I'm thinking of something like bishop takes a6, rook a6, and then there's a couple of ideas that white can consider trying to implement. One is to basically play either king e2 or king d2 and try to organize some sort of sack on h7. Another is to go rook h6 to prevent this idea of h5. But the problem there is white's king itself is a little bit unsafe. I mean, it's on e1. Okay, he goes rook c1 to plug the holes and attack the knight. I like that move a lot. And once he's improved his queenside situation, then he can think about basically going rook h6, for example.
Yeah. And the rook on a6 is not a happy square for that piece because it needs to stay coordinated with the other rook. And I like Eric's move rook to c1 because he's attacking on two fronts. He's saying, I'm going to get the c file and I'm going to try to checkmate you down the h file. And you have to be looking both ways, figuring out, wait a second, which one's going to happen first. And b5 is played that looks like an aggressive move, but it's played more out of necessity. And I like it because what Alina desperately needs, is some form of counterplay. Here, there might be a4 followed by b4, breaking open the queen side. Rook h6 played by Eric. He's saying, okay, here comes queen h4. Let me go take on h7.
Yeah.
Let me go checkmate you. And that's a great plan.
If he allows, I mean, Alina has several options, king g7 being one of them, intending queen h4, rook h8. Another is you can wait for queen h4 and then go f5. Obviously, that allows en passant, and that's just nastiness. But in terms of staving off mate, both of those are much better than giving up h7, I think. Maybe Alina's opting for the second choice. I feel like that's just got to be losing, though. E takes f6 en passant, then bishop d6 comes in. I mean, everything starts to crumble there.
Yeah, it just looks like a brilliant attack. But if Black is able to... What?
Wait, what if rook h7?
Oh, queen b4 check?
Oh! Wow! That's insane. What an idea. But does it work?
That is the essential question. Does it work? Is how I feel about all of my ideas. Hey, Robert, great idea you're thinking of there, buddy. But does it work? And the answer typically is no. But if queen b4 check, you can just trade the queens off. The thing about this position, though, is Black's king isn't really safe even with the queens off the board.
Yeah. Okay, that's going to be slicing off the fourth rank, so that queen b4 no longer forces a queen trade. But I can feel like Black might have something here.
Knight takes e5, and after knight e5, where's h7? Knight d3 check.
King f1.
Queen b2, and I cover the h8 square. And threaten queen takes f2 check to get rid of your queen and get your rook on h7 under attack. Oh my gosh.
Devious Grandmaster you. Yeah, that's a very interesting. I mean, you're basically defending from the other side. That's the power of a queen. It's such a long-range piece, and you never cease to marvel at the queen's capabilities of defending from the other side of the board. That's exactly what Alina does.
Wow.
What I've observed so far in these first two games, she's seizing her opportunities in very difficult positions. Just incredible tenacity. Not to jump to conclusions, but I've been very impressed with the way that she's handled these situations.
The theme of the match certainly has been Eric gets a superior position out of the opening, and Alina fights back with tremendous force. And in this case, I'm starting to like her position because I don't see a clear winning path for Eric anymore. Of course, if you get one more move, you'd have rook h8 check, but here came the queen to b2, covering this square here and threatening the rook on c1, the bishop on f4. In fact, if like it's a free move, let's say you move your rook somewhere, knight takes f4 simply wins a piece because the queen is attached to the rook. It's an overloaded piece. This is, when you hear that word overloaded, this is the quintessential example of it. If you put that word in the dictionary and want a chess position, this is a great one because the queen needs to protect the rook on h7. It needs to protect f2, which is a mating square. It needs to protect the bishop on f4, and the rook on c1 is under attack. Wow. This is actually awesome stuff.
It is, and I was thinking about bishop e3 here, intending knight takes c1, bishop d4, but Black is essentially spoiled for choice here. Even queen takes d4 and king h7 is a practical way to get a position with only winning chances. And I'm sure there's probably some sort of combination of checks there that's even stronger than that. But I mean, I don't see what to do. Eric's position is falling apart. That's the danger of throwing all of your chips into the center of the table. If it doesn't work out, your position crumbles immediately. And that's kind of what we see here.
This knight on d3 came in at a miraculous time. Knight takes e5 was a great resource available to Alina just because the rook on c1 needed the bishop's defense for that moment. And rook c2.
Rook C2. I was
Nice.
thinking about that, but I didn't. Yeah, Queen A1 check and
Because knight takes f4, again, the queen is overloaded protecting the rook on h7. So I'm going to win your bishop, and now knight takes
fake
c1.
it. Yeah, and then G3, but then knight D3, and black just collects everything. The rook on C2 is toast as well. And the problem, white has no way to generate any further threats on the king side. Amazingly, H8 is the only square that's a potential mating square. It's very safely covered by that queen on A1. The queen on A1 cannot even come close to being dislodged by any of white. Has no pieces left.
You need this rook to jump from c2 over to the h file, but it takes so long. Your king is under attack. Oh, knight e1 check. I mean, you called it. You saw this happening, and you're picking up this rook. And as you said, no more
knight f3.
Attack. Oh, knight f3 winning the queen.
I'm not even satisfied. I'm going for the steak. I'm not going for the chicken. I'm going for the filet mignon right here. And this one's over. And look at the time situation. Beautiful time management by Alina here.
You greedy man. I heard you there. I don't think you could just slip in I'm going for the fancy meal.
Look, when I go to Outback and everybody orders a 6-ounce steak, that's like knight takes c2. I'm going for the 12-ounce. I'm going for the knight f3 check steak. I'm not there to just have a little small cut of meat.
Well, I don't eat meat anymore, but if I did, I would hope that you'd have like a porterhouse for two. That way you get the really big meal, and also you're sharing with me. So I just want this to be
with Robert.
Come on, man. This has to be. With you. All right. Well,
I only share with good commentators. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to go back to talking about the chess. You can go talk about your food and how hungry you are. But this position, Danya, with the bishop on b7. So this is one of those advantages of capturing on d5. The bishop on b7, it's behind its own pawn. Not the end of the world. It does help allow you to play a move like knight e4 at some point. But the bishop on b7, not exactly an active piece, and it won't be for the foreseeable future.
Exactly. I think objectively these positions are equal, but I'm always biased toward white here because I feel like Alina's got the easier play. As you mentioned, that bishop on b7, knight e5 now comes in. Just, that relatively small but stable space advantage. I feel like white has a marginal practical advantage here, though maybe knight g6 and black can neutralize the initiative with a couple of accurate moves.
Although white can always just retreat this bishop, play pawn to f4, and reinforce that knight on e5. Because black is sort of gasping for air in a position like this. You have no piece except for your pawn on d5 past the third rank. And as we pointed out already, and we should continue to mention, the bishop on b7, not a very useful piece. So bishop f3 played. Is that really going after the d5 pawn? That pawn's well protected. So I'm not sure I love bishop f3. I didn't really love my idea with bishop g3 and pawn f4 either. But somehow the bishop on f3 feels like it's maybe not doing the most.
Yeah, I mean, it looks nice, finishing the architectural designs, that bishop on f4, bishop on f3. But I agree with you, Robert. I think that pawn on d5, there's this sort of semi-famous chess expression, bad bishops defend good pawns.
Yep.
I think it was coined by this Romanian grandmaster Shuba. And this is a good example of that. That bishop on b7 is kind of the unsung hero of black's position. I'm not seeing, what Alina exactly is accomplishing by putting her bishop on f3. I mean, I think this is in the realm of equality, but I feel like Eric has solved most of his opening problems. Although maybe there's still some pressure going on. I don't know.
She just laughs at us. She's like, wait, what'd you say about that d5 pawn being protected? I'm going right after it because queen b3 here, putting another attacker on that d5 pawn. Does black have to make a move like c6? Yikes, that's not a pleasant move to play. Or can you get away with some sort of knight e4? And at a certain moment, you kind of have to do something. You can't just sit so passively. C6 looks awful. It might be okay, and it can be justified by a silicon beast, but not by me. And there's knight e4. I like that move. And after bishop takes e7, you must take with the rook on e7. Don't hang the pawn on d5 when you take with the queen there, and instead take with the rook on e7.
And I think black is okay there. I think black is okay after rook e7 because, bishop takes c4 de. One could argue that the knight is better than the bishop, but, operatively speaking, I'm not sure that positional advantage is particularly significant.
I like it, Danya.
Here.
Great idea. Bishop e4, de, bishop e7. I assume queen e7 or rook e7. Maybe rook e7.
Well, maybe bishop e4 and d5. Maybe white can keep the pressure going with something like that.
Well, I wanted to go after queen e7, go knight d5, and just my rook's on d1, not on c1. Never mind. Take it back. I'm like, this rook's on d1. Why is this rook on d1? The rook's supposed to be on c1 when there's a pawn on c7.
It really, rook c1 and d1 is the ideal setup. Maybe rook c1. But that's what she does.
I was so just like in my own head that this rook was already on c1 because the rook on d1 wasn't being so useful. And that she did go rook d to c1, which is strategically sound, but maybe tactically dubious because look at Eric go g5, as mentioned, rook e6, g4, queen h4, going for really an aggressive approach by Eric.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of these games just lulled into a sense that, I have free pressure, my king is safe. And it is for the time being, but we can see how quickly Eric is piling up. King g7, he opens the h file, and all of a sudden, the fortunes turn completely. So Alina's got to be very, very careful. Knight e2, okay, she's doubling on the c file, but I'm not sure White's play on the queen side is weighty enough to justify, not attending to the safety of White, long-term safety of White's king.
Although the knight on g3 is an excellent defender, because
True.
If I can safely plant my knight on that square and I cover the h1 square, even if you check me on h2, I just run my king at king f1, king into the center. Sounds, for those of you who are less experienced, king right in the center, what are you talking about? My coach always says castle, get your king to safety. But if Black were to put all of his forces over on the king side, sometimes your king's got to go on a nice little saunter towards the center.
Indeed. And Alina piling up on that c file. The problem is you would love to put a third rook on c4 right now. So if this were, I don't know, a crazy house game or a bug house game, okay, if this were a bug house game, Black would also put a queen on h2, and that would be that. But you know what I mean. In a certain sense, Alina has tied down Eric's pieces, but sometimes people miss that Black is not the only one tied down. White is also tied down to tying Black down. So as soon as one of the pieces leaves the c file, one of Black's pieces will also be free.
I think it's a very good way of putting it, exactly how I was thinking about it. Because on one hand, White looks like she is the more aggressive approach because the pawn on c7 is the biggest eyesore in the position. But as you correctly stated, that White doesn't have anything going on for her besides the fact that she's tying Black down. So it's an idea that in theory sounds great, but in practice, kind of like, wait, what did I just do here? I don't have anything. Now c6 for Black.
And there we go. Yeah, c6 and g4 is already maybe not an immediate threat, but definitely a possibility to deal with. Now, but as you mentioned, Robert, even if a check on h2 is allowed, it's not over yet because knight g1 comes in, but still that looks like White is hanging, by the hair on your chinny chin chin.
I love how you stopped because you were like, oh wait, this sounds, less. You don't hear it as much when it's a female player with that expression, but you were
exactly,
like, wait a second.
Like, what am I saying? Yeah. So, but you, Robert, you're always a very good target for these expressions. So I always rest assured that if worst comes to worst, I have you.
Well, people miss the hair on my chinny chin chin. I've heard it from all of our fans. Shout out to all the viewers here. We have so many of you across Chess.com TV, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday. There's a double header, so don't forget that there's another match later tonight at, what time is it, that match? 8 p.m. Eastern?
I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern, but don't.
I'm pretty sure it's 8 p.m. Eastern. You better not be late because if you don't show up for the match, I'm going to be very disappointed. I will be a little happy for a bit because I can just talk about myself, not have to deal with your bad jokes and your amazing impressions and make me feel bad that I cannot perfect the Garry Kasparov. But this is going to be a full day ahead and another full day tomorrow of the IM Gym Speeches Championship. So I just want to thank everybody. And as soon as I'm thanking people, here comes Rook Takes C6 with an exchange sacrifice. I love it, Daniel.
It's a very practical decision. Alina knows if she allows f4, especially with the time on her clock, she's going to get checkmated. So very, very smart practical decision. Absolutely.
And watch out for White to play pawn h4 to free up the f4 square for her knight. Because look at Black's rooks. Rooks need to be in coordination with each other. Play h4. Okay, she plays knight c2 to shut down the c file. That's probably a smarter choice because rook e to c7 was a threat, trying to bring the rook down the c line. Here, just rook to d6. And this rook on d6 on the 6th rank can shuffle back and forth. It takes some serious effort from Black to play b5, b4, because the a6 pawn will fall in the interim. So I think Eric should press for a win, especially considering his time advantage, but it's not going to be easy.
No, and the king on g7 is pinned to the g6 pawn. Alina might add some heat with g4, and she goes g3, which is, I guess, sensible as well. I just don't see how, as you said, Black can organize this b5 pawn push. And for the third time, we see this happening where it seems like Eric's pressuring, but at some point, Alina finds a very practical resource to change the course of the game. And then all of a sudden she starts seizing the upper hand. But I agree. I think Eric's got to find some way here to muddy the waters a little bit. He decides on b5. I like it. I like the bravery here. He can actually take on b4 after ab because knight d5 is not a fork. Well, it is, but rook c1 check gets him out of it.
Oh, I'm not sure I like knight d5 immediately,
and
because now
b3.
b3. Push that pawn to b3.
That pawn on b2, if it falls, the game is over.
Right. And b3, rook takes c2, rook takes b2. I don't know how white plans to stop that, but it's looking pretty nasty. Oh,
he wants to double on the sec. Oh,
checkmate.
Is it just there's no defense?
Rook h1, other rook to g1 with checkmate.
Wow, and the king can actually escape the checks on h6. King f8, rook a8, king g7, rook a7, king h6. That's great thinking by Eric to realize that even though it's an endgame, you can still mount a mating attack.
And this knight c7 check. Where's the king going? Okay.
You're never sure in this. Knight d5, king d6. I guess there's enough space.
Yeah, there's enough space again. Knight king d6 here still.
But okay, yeah, king d6. I'm winning for black completely.
It is winning. We're going to see rook g1, rook h1, rook b to g1 with a mate. So you can't stop this exact plan. And if we don't see it on the board, I will come back and show it. So don't worry, everybody. Checkmate will be on the board no matter what. Alina, I think, will resign here because nobody likes to actually see their king get mated. But in nice...
Speak for yourself, Robert.
Don't you lie to the viewers. You do not like to get checkmated.
Yeah, no, there's few things I hate more than getting checkmated. And there we see the resignation, but please show it.
Okay, so as soon as they start this next game, I will... they start the next game. I'm going to pull up this checkmate here just to show. So any move that white plays, like knight to c5, there's rook g1 check, king h2, rook h1 check, king g2, and rook b to g1, checkmating this king because the f2 pawn gets in the way and the e4 pawn covers the f3 square. So it wasn't working out for Alina. And if she in the start there had tried touching her f pawn at f4, there's actually this funny checkmate, rook b or rook c2 mate. As noted, the e4 pawn takes with the f3 square. The rooks do the rest, taking away the king's escape. So it's just a check and a mate. So back to this new game. We see, well, I call it a new game, but Danya, we've seen this line before, haven't we?
Deja vu, indeed. We saw it in the game that Alina won, but she was hanging by a thread. So this situation has happened in a couple of the matches, Rob, and I wonder what you think about it, where there's this dilemma. Do I repeat the line that I prepared before the match, even though, my opponent maybe has over-prepared me there, or does Alina shift the strategy completely and sort of admit defeat? It's a very difficult decision to make in the course of the games.
I get the feeling that Eric has prepared this line and Alina worked it out in the first game. And if she loses a game in this line, somehow kind of crushing checkmate down the H-file, she will stop playing it. Because it's the type of thing where it worked out the first time, you have happy memories of it. It wasn't clear how I lose the game, and I actually outplayed my opponent and won a nice tactical affair. So let's try it again. But as soon as something happens with a rook h6, just another rook to h1, a rook takes h7, you get checkmated, you're like, nope, none of that anymore. Even if it objectively, there's a fight, just emotionally, you're like, no, I've had it. That hurt. And knight d4. So this knight trying to come to b3 now.
Well, bishop takes g6 is possible. First of all, I wouldn't do that necessarily because fg. Yeah, that's a bad move. I forgot about fg. But Alina very tricky in these. But how about something like queen f4? I guess the knight can go to f5, and that's a pretty nice defensive square, stopping queen h4. Okay, she decides very bravely on knight b3. Oof.
Yeah, so knight f5. I'm going to pull down the analysis board really quickly, this knight f5 move, because knight f5, I'm sure she was just worried about a capture on f5, and then bishop f5, ef5, then some kind of rook h6. And opposite colored bishops sometimes give you good chances to hold, but not when an attack just by brute force comes. It looks really tough to deal with.
That's a great point, Robert. Opposite colored bishops, people assume they produce drawish tendencies, but with the queens on the board, it can have the opposite effect. There was a very famous game between Kasparov and Karpov where, I managed to trick Karpov by getting into opposite colored bishop position, and I crushed him, with the queens on the board. So it can be the exact opposite because the bishop has no colleague to contest its control over the diagonal. So knight b3, again, very interesting chance going to c5. Alina, again, starting to muddy the waters. This queen h4, h5 resource constantly recurs in these positions.
Right. And queen h4 here, as you point out, h5, it's just such an annoying thing that white has in her back pocket. It looks like just queen h4, hey, I'm going to go checkmate you on h7. And I think because a lot of players are afraid to sacrifice material, they don't think about this move h5 necessarily as being one that is okay for black. But even if black were not a pawn up to start with, giving up a pawn in this manner tends to work out. So let's say right now we see queen h4. So queen h4, h5, g takes h6 en passant. Even if black were not up, now even because you start up a pawn, this kind of thing helps black survive, where you take on h4, put your king on h7, there's no more attack, and then with the attack dealt with, black can focus on the queen side and try to get counterplay there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well explained. And here we see rook h6, which Eric also played in the previous game in this position at some point, rook h6, because he's got to stop this h5 idea. We have a very similar type of position, actually. So it's going to be decided on these concrete details. Can black find a way to patch together some defense against queen h4? Eric thinking about queen h4 very seriously here.
Yep, because queen h4 sacrifices the bishop. The bishop on d3 can now move, but rook takes h7 followed by rook h8 check is not just a check, it leads to mate. So bishop f5 after, let's say queen h4, if we just analyze a little bit, queen h4, and that was just played. If there is some kind of bishop f5 or bishop c2, trapping the rook on d1, rook takes h7, and I see no way to stop rook h8 and queen h6 check.
There we have it. And by the way, we thank International Master John Bartholomew for the generous raid. John, of course, playing tomorrow in a very anticipated match against Mr. Trent. So thank you to John. Hey guys, it's John for the raid. And here we see queen h4 f5. Now, this is not the end of the story, because even after ef queen f7, that defensive construction, Robert, is surprisingly difficult to break down.
It is, and the reason why is white has this dark squared bishop, which sounds good, looks good, but watch out for this knight. This knight is about to be a wily piece. Here comes the c5, then it's going to e4, then I'm going to throw my rook a to c8, and unless you can get this rook on d3 over to the h file to take this h7 pawn, and even when you do that, I will simply play rook a7 to protect. This is a kind of like, I don't call it impenetrable fortress, but it is very difficult to crack it.
Impervious to everything but water. Yeah, and maybe the fastest way to try to get the rook to the h file is to play rook e3 here, not rook d1, king e2, rook h1, but rook e3, then move the bishop from g3, and then try to play rook h3. But as you point out, Robert, even if you do that, black has rook a7 if worse comes to worse. And once again, white encounters the situation. He's got physically no more firepower to put on the king side.
Rook d1, Eric wants to lift his king up to the e2 square and bring that rook over. But look what Alina's doing. She's just pointing out that, hey, a rook a7 is always an idea. You can take this pawn on e5 now. And actually, I'm wondering if you should, but bishop e5 runs into rook a to e8 or rook f d8, one of these rooks. f4 comes, you play knight d7, so you do snag that bishop. And if some pieces start getting traded and the black rooks gain legitimate activity, then you just see a position where, hey, I mean, things might fizzle out, and there's some opportunity for black to take advantage of the fact that white's king side is overextended. What do I mean by that? This pawn on g5 will not be easy to defend in many lines. So if the center collapses, perhaps the king side will also collapse next.
Yeah, very interesting practical chance by Alina for sure. So bishop e5, of course, rook e8 does not win the bishop to f4.
Yep.
And now I was wait, there was a rook d5 opportunity. I was thinking about it.
I knew it. I could just sense it.
You just know I can't resist those things, but I don't think it quite worked. And Eric's queen h2 reinforcing the bishop on e5. But now, among other things, Alina could consider taking twice on e5.
Yes, and I'm going to have it. We'll do it. We'll look and analyze this line because this is really interesting moment here. And what Danya is saying is white is going to get two rooks for the queen. And after knight e5, f e5, rook e5 check, queen e5, rook e8, white can actually throw in rook takes d5 to steal your central pawn first. And I think that's a good pawn to capture because normally I would take on d5 because your queen on e5 is pinned. But here, if I take on d5, I lose the defense of my rook on e8. And after rook e5 check, rook takes e5, queen c4, at best, black is going to make a draw somehow, but rook e8 check, rook back to e7 with check. Is this holdable? Does black have enough checks for that queen? I'm not certain.
Not sure, yeah, but Alina goes for a different approach, queen e6. After rook h7, queen e5, black is probably actually, believe it or not, winning because you cannot capture the queen because the rook is no longer supported on h7. Eric very sensibly goes king f1. Now after queen takes c5, there might be some sort of f7 check in the air, although I'm not sure that actually works out after king f7.
Right, queen e5, f7, king f7, rook h7 check, king g8, and I have the h8 square covered. Somehow Alina has mastered dark square control in these games on the black side.
She's making so much out of her queen. It's always defending that h8 square. It's unbelievable, sort of tenacity and precision in defense by Alina, who goes queen g4. Very brave, but is it good after rook takes d5?
I don't like the move, but rook d5, is she trying to rely on some kind of rook d8 and a counter checkmate idea? But rook takes h7 there? No, that probably
can't be right. Rook e1, though, by Eric, which I understand. The problem is white's king can tuck itself away on h1. That's a very annoying defensive square. Rook a7 seems forced, and she does have a blockade on e6, but he plays e6 anyway. And queen b8.
Queen b8.
Oh, what an idea.
Oh, completely overlooked by Alina. I don't understand why she didn't take on e5, but now that she didn't take on e5, her position is just completely busted. F7 check is pretty brutal. And for the over 8,000 of you watching across all the platforms, you see what happens when you don't take a free pawn. Sometimes greed is good. Gordon Gecko will be happy to hear that I said that, but other times you get punished. Here, the reticence, kind of just saying, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't go for that pawn.
But look at Eric's time. 3 seconds, but it should be enough because the position plays itself. Queen e5, very practical move. F7, mate, is a humongous threat. I just don't see it. And if there was some way to prolong the game, but rook f7, for example, simply e takes f7, and then white crowns a new queen, and it's just checkmate. But Eric praying to the internet gods right now. I mean, that's why I hate bringing myself to this time situation, because as good as Spectrum or AT&T is, occasionally there are glitches.
Yes. And g6. How many pawns do you need on the 6th rank, Danya?
Wow, 3 of them. This reminds me of this classic game, McDonald against, look like just everything collapsing rook e6. I mean, you could have taken on e6 immediately, but Eric being an evil man.
It's funny because you change your thought mid-sentence. For a second, I thought you just didn't know how to pronounce the last name of McDonald's opponent. Yeah, but you just changed. You were focusing on the game all of a sudden, so it sounded like you just were one of those people oh yeah, that movie, that movie that we all know, that movie. But for those of you who
I live many years in France. I don't know why you would assume that I don't know how to pronounce l'Abordonneau. It's pretty elementary, and in fact, you should be more worried that I cannot pronounce English names like Robert, and I cannot pronounce this S, Robert S. It's very weird. But anyways, yeah, that was a nicely played game by Eric. I think this is the impetus for Alina to change up the way she responds to Eric's London.
That was hilarious. I love your impressions. And while we do have many new viewers here who may not be familiar with the format, let's call attention to it. We have a time amount of a time portion for each segment here. So we have 75 minutes for the 5-minute plus 1 second increment portion. Then we get into the 3-minute with a 1 second increment for 45 minutes. And finally, 25 minutes of bullet chess of 1 minute with the 1 second increment. So that's why you see that timer clicking down. The players, it's not that it's a best of this many games or first to this many wins. No, it's the timer. So as we saw in the first round, Danya, even if you're down 4 games, as long as there's time ticking on that match clock, you have a chance to come back.
Yeah, and I really like that format. It encourages the sort of fighting play that we've seen in literally all of the matches so far. Sometimes when you have a point target that you need to get to, these considerations of, I need to draw this game, that game, and 94, interesting. But that comes into play here. It's you just play and play and play. By the way, bishop takes c7 here. Got distracted by that tactic. I think Eric might have overlooked that move.
Yep, and as we've this attack, there it is. You found it, and so it is she. And that's just a pawn, and with that pawn, the b6 pawn is also going to be permanently weak. The d5 pawn also loses its friend. I don't know what to call it. It becomes isolated. Why can't I just say things as simply as they should be said? The d5 pawn is now an isolated pawn. There it is, Danya. Sorry for totally butchering the good line that you proposed.
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be nice for once in my life. Yeah, and I mean, this is just, as you say, this isn't just any pawn. The problem with these setups for black is you make one blunder like this and it's just total misery. Eric is obviously not going to resign, and he has no tricks with knight takes c3 because, why can be Russian school of chess just take on c3 with the rook and say, you know what, no tactics, I'm just going to win all of your pawns. Now knight takes c4 and knight c3 or knight g3 is just absolutely miserable position for black. If he loses the d5 pawn, the game is basically over.
Agreed. And it's really annoying not to have that c pawn because I just saw the move knight d2 and my first instinct was c7 to c5, something like that. But you don't have a c pawn to ever push
exactly.
to c5 and challenge for the center. So now white is up a pawn, but like the earlier game we saw where Alina was actually down a pawn from the white side, if Eric can somehow get some trades, the bishops are stronger than the knights, especially this bishop on d6, right? This bishop on d6, it is operating on the queen side, just covering certain squares and also going to h2. Do not take on b6. Please do not play queen takes b6. Do
not pass go. Do not collect $200. Yeah, Eric, just so tricky. And we all know the extent. We all know the Rosen trap that involves stalemate, which of course happened in his previous match. But Alina on top of the situation. I'm not sure about a4 though. It just seems a little bit flimsy. Maybe she wants some bishop b1, bishop a2, but Eric has managed to get his pieces into the game and keep that pawn on d5 incredibly well protected.
Yeah, and actually you said bishop b1, bishop a2. For Eric, bishop b8 and some kind of queen d6 lining up on the diagonal does make a lot of sense. And as we look down the c file, not the queen's on c2, black has c4, c5, c6, c7. Made a move before I get all the highlights in. c4 through c8 is all under black's control. So what are the queen and rook doing there? They're on an open file. That's great. That's where they should be. But you're not accomplishing exactly what you would like to. And I think queen to e2 needs to happen, but not when there's a rook on e8 and allowing a knight f4.
So good point.
You want to go after this a6 pawn. If that a6 pawn were pushed, if you had to go a5, then you give me the b5 square for my bishop. And if I can start trading your pieces on the queen side, then I'm going to infiltrate.
Right. If you trade all rooks, for example, white's going to be in amazing shape. But bishop c8, I really like threatening bishop takes h3. And, Eric is tempting Alina to just, line her pockets on the queen side. But that king side, that king safety beginning to bother me. Queen c6, very, very good move because rook e6, there's queen takes c8. I really like that idea because it also stops queen d6, bishop takes h3. I'm not sure how Eric responds to this. Maybe bishop b6, just jettison all the queenside pawns, go full on trying to get kingside counterplay. But that's not easy either.
No, I don't believe in that. I mean, I like the kind of the thought process you have in saying, I can't afford to trade queens. Bishop d6, similar idea, but this actually protects the pawn on b6 and because, once more, don't take that pawn on b6. That's been the theme of this game is do not take the b6 pawn or else there's a discover check. Can I go bishop d7 now?
Yeah, and do not take. But what about the d5 pawn? Then bishop takes a4.
Yeah, queen takes d5. I think you have to go queen c2. Just retreat, admit that what you've gone for it hasn't quite worked out, but then the a6 pawn is under attack. This is the problem for both sides, honestly. White went in with queen to c6, but then has to go back because the a4 pawn is weak. But now the queen's gone back to c2. The a6 pawn is weak. And if you want to go a5, I will gladly play bishop b5. And finally, at long last, I'm ready to take over squares on your queen side.
Yep, and that knight on d2 supporting the knight on f3, stopping, these undermining tactics of bishop takes h3. I agree with you. I just don't see how Eric is going to orchestrate any sort of counterplay. And rook a8 is a sign of the times. The game is not over. White still only has a pawn. But if Alina, queen b3, accumulating the pressure, and Eric has withdrawn most of his pieces from the king side. So maybe doubling on the c file. I'm not exactly sure what the best way is of improving the position for white.
I'm considering a pawn sack with knight e5, just to say, you're annoying me with your bishop on d6, such a good piece, and king h1, trying to take on b6. That is a greedy move. King h1, I don't really like it, but I was going to say I kind of like it just because,
Jordan Belfort somewhere is approving of this move. But now knight e5,
yeah.
Are we afraid of bishop takes h3 ideas?
Well, she is making the prudent move because I was also ready to give up the h3 pawn, but it does give black a quick attack. So bishop f1, safe and sound. You are up a pawn, knight e5 is not stopped.
G5.
G5.
He's gotta go for it here because 45 seconds. I feel like he's got to start going G5, G4, throwing all of his chips, and otherwise he's just going to get pushed off the board.
But now I think it's too late.
Too late, yeah. As with most things, I say day late it's a day late and a dollar short, or is it? Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I thought you're such a worldly man, you were going to use a different currency, but you became U.S. centric, I guess.
Well, yeah, I was going to say a euro late and a dollar. No, oh my God,
no,
a night early and a euro short.
Hey, there we go. Look at you changing up the idiom there. And, well, black is struggling to do anything. The knight moves, d5 falls. The b5 pawn's still weak. Knight g6 is a good attempt, but even f4. I guess after f4, then black will play d4. Just needs some kind of counterplay. And just making white's king feeling a little less safe is a good way to try to achieve that. And Danya, I wasn't really noticing that Alina's up 2 full minutes on the clock.
Yeah, I just noticed that as well. That is absolutely crazy. I mean, 2 minutes to 13 seconds. And this is where, Alina's able to reap the benefits of her time management. She can take 30, 45 seconds, make sure she finds the most precise way to realize the advantage. But queen takes d5, knight takes c5. Surprisingly, black kind of holds things together and bishop c6 becomes a threat. Eric is annoying in that way. He's always able to find ways to keep extending the game. Bishop g4, another example of that.
I didn't like knight f3. I thought she was going to play f4 and just try to protect the pawn in that way. But now bishop g4 is super annoying. If I'm able to take on f3, I'm hurting your king side. I guess queen d5 did fall right now, and I sort of forgot that the queen protects f3. Now
queen f3, and white should be able to. With that pawn on b5, can also be vacuumed up potentially. Although
queen
b4 could defend it, but black's position starts to fall apart here.
Yep, and bishop takes b5. King g1. It makes sense because I guess the f2 pawn was hanging after a rook e to d8 type of move.
Now bishop b5, I guess.
Yeah. It's about time. Steal that thing.
Got to turn that vacuum cleaner on it. And there's some back rank issues. She takes the queen, but I guess queen a4 here. But then queen takes b2.
Yeah, I didn't like queen takes b5.
Huh.
Rook b1, then just queen
the thing is the queen can retreat to even. Maybe rook b7. Okay,
I like rook b7.
Very fast.
I like rook b7 there. So the way you win a position like this is you go after the f7 pawn. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but when your opponent has 5 seconds left, and I like the attempt to trade queens there, because even without the queens, the f7 pawn is still such a weakness. And then white expands with e4, f4, g3. Start pushing your pawns towards your enemy king and just limit that knight. The knight on g6 should not be allowed some kind of aggressive outpost. And let's see, how do we finish this, Danya? Rook d5, I like that move.
That's a great move. I mean, I think Eric's got to play queen e7. I mean, at some point he's got to bite the bullet and trade queens. But defending that with 3 seconds on the clock is all but impossible. And, the time. Just g3, I agree with you, Robert. Slow but surely, g3, h4, then h5. Black is just too passive. And white's king is perfectly safe. There's just no sources of counterplay. I don't think Alina should be afraid of playing a move like g3, moving a pawn in front of her own king.
She's going for f4, I guess. I mean, king h2 seems to evidence that is the f pawn is weak. So f4, rook f5.
Okay. Yeah, that time. I'm just bishop e4, bishop d5. Another idea to tighten the screws a little bit.
I mean, you have to, but we talked about this. This position still should be excellent for white. Don't allow knight e7. Do not allow knight e7.
Oh. Okay, but ed.
Okay, rook
G5. Man, that rook is in some trouble too. Rook f3.
Yeah, but take on d5. Close. I would take on d5, play rook d8, king f8, just try to get my king there.
I don't like what Eric just did. I think he had to. Well, now g5. Okay. And he is
king f3. Bring that king in.
Yep. All these with king e3 and f4. A huge idea. That rook. Oh, rook wanders f7. Yeah, this is the game over. This is GG.
And she paused long. Wait, watch out, Danya. The h pawn doesn't match the bishop. So what black needs to do is trade off the knight. If you had gf4 already, it would have been a draw.
That would have been a draw. Very good point, by the way. Now f5 comes in, and this is...
Yeah, it's too late now.
Crushing for white. King d5 and bishop b1. I mean... Okay. I'm not sure about that, but still winning, I'm sure. Oh, my God! No, it's winning. It's still winning.
Okay, she did in this order, but king e5, king
e6. Oh, my God.
Oh, that was
That was close. She cut it close.
yes. And Eric is just the ultimate swindler.
He really is. I mean, and here there isn't even any stalemate ideas. King F8 and pre-move Queen G7.
Oh my gosh, that scared me. I think we should pull that one up on the analysis board while they start the opening of the next game,
my
just to show
lands.
that moment once more. Because we had several different ideas going through our head. And what I was saying was if Eric had taken on F4, GF4, and then knight G6 first, E5 would not have been a good move because knight E5, F5, King E5, the king sits on H8. And this is why I always bring up bishop and rook pawn. Look if the corners match. This would be a theoretical draw on the spot. So just something to keep in mind for everybody who's tuning in. Alina would not have played E5. She would have held off. Let us go to the live game. We don't want to miss any of the live action here. Taking on E5.
And she had to because bishop G6, H4 is typical idea, forcing black to ruin her pawn structure with H6. So Eric with another one of his lines that seem innocuous, but he's gotten a very good position here with the two bishops and a slightly weakened pawn structure for Alina. But yeah, after something like G6, it's, no serious damage has been done. And she does the right thing by going for a long castle. I'm pretty sure that's
Queen B4 check has some counterplay, I guess, because the C7 pawn is hanging.
Yeah. And so, but Eric's got to be careful. He's a little underdeveloped. So castles in E5 here can come very, very fast. So I like knight C3, emphasizing, completing his development.
Interesting position. My first instinct is I don't really like this pawn on E6 because the backward pawn, if white gets a bishop H3, you have the two bishops as well. But what you just said totally makes sense to me. And Queen B4, that is... How about A3?
A3, a very typical idea. Queen B2, knight A4 traps the queen. No, it's a little bit impulsive, I think. Maybe she wants to tuck her queen on B6 in order to pave the way for bishop D6, but something about that seems a little artificial.
Yeah, because white can even consider knight B5 type of maneuvers, forcing the rook to C8. And I can't go knight B5 now, but it's queen B6. That's what I was looking at.
And it's playing with fire. I mean, B4 leaves the queen with one square.
Yeah, that queen is in trouble. Queen B6, knight A4. Don't I trap the queen?
Knight A4. Oh my goodness. No, you didn't. Queen C6, B5.
The queen's trapped. I have all of the squares that your queen can go to.
That's control. Sick in the center of the board like that. Wow. And Alina realizing it, but it's too late to back down. Now she's just down at P. I mean, this is just completely losing.
Hey, I told Vida this, so I have to tell you the same thing. We're not using language like that. Especially when Eric Rosen is well. I don't care what side of it. Nothing is completely losing when Eric Rosen is playing.
That's true.
On a serious note, this is really, really, really bad for black. You're down a piece.
And it's not just the thing is you might say, oh, well, black has two pawns for the piece. The problem is, first of all, rook B1, rook takes B7 is possible. And second of all, black still has a pretty weak king. So white's got all of these advantages and Eric's got plenty of time. So rook B1, sensible. I think Eric is actually pretty good at converting advantages like this, but we all know Alina's tenacity. Even knight E4 here is possible. So definitely not over. We've seen swindles in worse positions than this, that's for sure.
So bishop D3, but these are the type of moves. Like bishop D3 makes sense, but also it's a bit slow, right? You're not threatening anything. And now C5 comes in, you think, hey, is my king on E1 actually that safe? Or is there some kind of E5 breaking everything open? You just get in your own head. Eric has plenty of time here. He should convert this. And as you said, he is obviously extremely good, not just at defending tough positions, but also converting good positions. But we saw in game one, Eric was up a pawn, had that bishop on B7, the knight on D4, everything was going well, but he let Alina hang around for a little bit too long. And I'm just concerned that this could happen in this game too.
Yep. And rook takes B7. I like that decision by Eric. Fearless, because C4 looks annoying, but after bishop E2, I feel like black is no fault. It's also important to point out this bishop on F4, defending the B8 square. That's a huge source of counterplay for black. Otherwise, that is now completely shut down. There's no rook B8 possibilities. So, white's pieces are kind of doubling as very good defenders. I'm just not seeing it for black here in terms of, whipping up some sort of last second counterplay.
And the rook on G1, the rook on B7, they pile up pressure on the G7 pawn, keeping the knight on D7 stuck there. I'm with you, Danya. It's just a position that looks like you don't have any of the real resources you need to hold such a tough position. Maybe just play c4, queen a6, just try to kick this rook off the 7th rank, and then eventually push your a pawn. You need some idea. I know the position is bad, so I play c4, bishop e2, queen a6. The rook moves somewhere. I try to go queen c6, try to go a5, and get something going for me. I know it's not a lot. I still hate my position, but something at least is available to you in those lines.
Right. And you're playing on the fact that your opponent can get impatient. I've seen many games decided like this where you're up a piece or you have some certainly winning position, but no immediate opportunity presents itself. You start getting impatient, and that's exactly when the blunders and the super impulsive decisions happen. So Alina going for queen a1, rook b1, queen a5, I guess. But after that, there's this knight e4 resource that essentially might force some sort of a trade that has to be favorable for white.
Knight e4 is a good move, and this is thematic. When you see queens in the same diagonal, you often want to remove the piece that's separating them, especially when you're up material, as Eric is here. Knight e4 exposes the queen on a5 to an attack, and then maybe Alina will play queen a2
and
or something.
c4 maybe.
Yeah, just trying. Just go for your resources. And Eric is up on the clock. I actually thought that Alina spent too much time to play queen a1 check. She went a minute and a half. When you're down a piece and you're trying to fight back, you need to have an advantage in the clock. You need to put your opponent in time trouble. And Eric, with 2+ minutes here, that's not the kind of time trouble that would make me concerned about his ability to convert this position.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you have to try to exploit every advantage you have. And playing fast when you're lost, it can also just psychologically tempt your opponent into playing fast as well. And you have nothing to lose. If you lose the game, I was already lost to begin with. But you've got to use every practical tool to complicate things in the book. And Eric wisely taking his time here, deciding on the appropriate course of action. But he can't fall asleep entirely. He goes f3, but potentially, just covering the e4 square, general improving move.
And rook f7 to preemptively protect g7 so that there's no timely bishop h6 or queen g2, swinging the queen over there. And Eric's really burning serious clock now. And the reason I don't like f3, Danya, is if knight h5 comes, the f3 pawn is a target. So
He's already loose now. His position's starting to look a little bit loose.
Yeah, black has really picked up some momentum here. And rook b5, there's queen a3. I'm just hanging on by a third. I can take on d3 with check as well. Okay, so knight here, queen a2. I like that move.
King f2, there's already some... Ooh.
I know. You were looking at the same thing I was with problems down the f5 with e5.
e5. Oh, exactly. My goodness.
If bishop e5, knight e4 check, takes, knight takes, and oops, there goes the queen.
The problem was king f2, e5. There may have been rook a1, but now rook c, and another very good. Now knight takes c3 and rook c2 is all of a sudden a threat. Eric is almost down to a minute. Man, this is looking pretty darn good for Alina. Of course, white is still completely winning, and Eric should win this game, but she's done a great job complicating the situation.
Hey, Donna, are you hungry? Because you should probably eat your earlier words. Just throwing that out there.
A visit to Outback Steakhouse might be on the cards.
All right, so how do we get e5 to happen? Right, we need to play e5 as black if we're going to try to have some kind of play. I actually like Eric's move knight d4 a lot. It just now challenges black. The last few moves, black was the one picking momentum, seizing the initiative, and knight d4 is fighting back for it. And the e5 square, I can just plant my bishop there at the right moment, play pawn f3 to f4, gain some more space on the king side, and black somehow needs to make e5 happen. I just don't see a way. Yeah,
and that's knight e4 was just a complete showstopper. It's one of those moves where you start getting hopeful, and your opponent just brings a hammer down. And the fact that e5 is defended is the critical factor here in this position. Now, with that being said, I like a6. Alina kind of h4, maybe rook e8. I don't know how to spice things up here for black. I feel like Alina's exhausted most of her immediate resources here.
What about some kind of knight h5?
And then bishop e5, knight d7.
Yeah, just asking you where you're going to put that bishop. The rook e8 played, so going for e5. And look at the time, Danya, 40 seconds for Eric. He's shown that he can play with just 3 seconds on his clock. But this is really not that easy of a position now. I could take on d3 and go for e5 if I want. I would play maybe even queen a3 at some moment just to hope that you blunder your bishop on d6 to discoveries. And knight b7.
Mm-hmm. Bishop b5. No, knight d7. Knight d7. Yep. Okay.
This is really starting to turn around.
Yeah, amazing, because white is still up a piece. Actually, king e2 in this position would have been interesting, trying to trap the queen. But f4, now knight c5. Now the e4 square is weak as well. Look at the time, 24 seconds, steadily ticking down.
Do you play knight e4 now? Okay, rook c8, try to take on d3
back
again.
To that idea. Rook g2, though.
Rook g2 is a nice, hard move to play, I would say, but a really nice move. Because when you see an open g5, you think about swinging your queen to g2 to checkmate. But rook g2 covering the second rank.
And bishop h7. He wants knight g5, knight f7. I looked at that. Wasn't sure it's that convincing.
Well, actually, how do I keep my rook on c8 safe?
Ooh, king f8, queen g2.
And then knight takes e5. You could play on for a few more moves, but yeah, it actually was a really nice tactical.
It really was.
Spot there.
Look at Eric just taking his
knight
time.
f8. Knight f8.
Bishop d6.
Then other knight to d7.
Yeah, maybe? But the problem is white's king is all of a sudden quite safe on e1.
Agreed.
So I just feel like queen g7 and white's pieces are streaming in.
Although knight c to d7 threatens rook takes c2 stuff, so you have to be a bit careful.
Yup, check.
And queen f7.
Check on f7 and rook takes f8, and that's all she wrote.
Is there some kind of queen a3 would be a cool move, but your e6 is hanging with check, c8 rook's hanging with check. I was trying to go queen a3 takes e3, but I don't have time.
Yeah, kind of a fork, but yeah, what black's king is just too weak here. Queen a5 and white's king can run to g1.
Right.
Yeah, and this one is this c3, very sensible move, out of checks, and the game is over. Queen c8.
Just don't blunder the checkmate in f2. And Eric wins on time. Danya, that game was way closer than I thought it would be. You had said at first, you're like, oh, this game is over. And I was like, hey, wait a second here. There's still going to be some complicated matters. And that goes to show that you have to win one games, and winning one games is one of the hardest things to do in chess.
Only one of us can be Nostradamus here, so I defer to you in that regard. But I'd also point out, I think it's something they say, in basketball, sometimes it's a lopsided game and you're going to win the game, but it's still worth making a run because you basically, chess is also a game of psychology. So now, for example, Eric might, the next time he reaches a winning position, he might be a little bit unsettled, remembering that he had a very difficult time winning it the last time. So it's not only about the immediate result when it comes to a long match, it's also about instilling this sort of psychological fear. And here we have another.
This is the Casa Corley.
Yep, against Vysenko.
This is the Casa Corley. There's going to be, oh my gosh, this was like one of the games of the year in 2019 from the Extracon, formerly the Political Cup in Denmark. FE4, there's knight h3 check, gh3, queen takes h4, with all sorts of fancy rook e5 type moves and the h3 pawn. Oh boy.
And Eric just taking that move and taking that sip of his, I wonder what tea that is, grapefruit, green tea, yoga, Zen tea, but he has really gotten the rose Zen of this position. This is a game that maybe some of the viewers are familiar with, a brilliant win by Casa Corley, and we see it reproduced here.
I'm very mad at you for that pun. I didn't miss it. I heard it.
Thank you. As long as you heard it, Robert, that makes me satisfied already.
We're going to show e5, rook takes e5, d e5, bishop c5 check. The king is running out of squares, and if you go to g2 or h1, I see the queen takes h2 with mate. You have to make a move like knight d4, then try to block with rook f2, but you've already sacrificed so many pawns just to win the rook to begin with that black is going to be the one in a favorable position. I do believe somehow, somewhere, there might be some kind of like draw, miraculous draw, but I don't know it, and coming up with it over the board is not going to be fun.
Indeed, especially Moisenko didn't find the solution to classical game, and I think there was a correspondence game a few years back where this happened. But in terms of over-the-board play, I think Casa's move was a novelty. So
no, I actually think Casa played it twice. I think he beat two different GMs with the line or something like that. Maybe he drew one of the games. But either way, Casa Corley uncorked this. Here's rook e5. And Eric Rosen, look at that, a student of the game.
Indeed.
And that's something that we've talked about in the past, Anya, and I want to reiterate it now because we take friendly barbs of the players. It's very difficult to play speed chess no matter who you are, no matter what your rating is. But Eric has clearly studied a lot. He is prepared not just for this match, but in general. And I have to give him a shout out because he's looked into this line, and Alina clearly not familiar with that game because you don't walk into this from the white side if you are. And I just want to give that shout out to Eric. We'll focus on the chess some more, but good on you, Eric Rosen.
I agree with you, Robert. And here he's got to be precise, but I think queen g5 check and bishop takes g4 is taking his time. I have exactly the same thoughts that you do in terms of Eric's just studiousness, his diligence in approaching opening preparation. He's a hard worker, and he reaps the rewards in terms of his opening preparation. We see time and time again he's reaching very dynamic positions. He knows what he's doing, and it's really refreshing to see someone with that kind of work ethic when it comes to openings. And I just think White is completely busted here after bishop g4, bishop takes g4. That king is just too wide open there.
Yeah, this is donezo. And I know I typically don't like saying that, but here this is much more clear than some of the other games we've seen. And the reason why is the king on g1 is likely going to be made in a few moves. Now I just take a free
Rook
piece.
f5. Yeah, this is over.
Do I take with a rook? Do I take with a bishop? I don't know. Either one should be completely and utterly winning. And as mentioned, the king on h1. So weak here. Black will be up 3 pawns after capturing on f5.
Yeah, just completely busted. And the best kinds of attacks are the ones where you're up a ton of material and you're attacking. Bishop f5. I thought rook f5 was a little more prudent, but this has got to be completely winning.
Well, rook e3 just is
resigns
for the h3 pawn. But what I was going to ask you is, should Alina use the entire match clock in terms of the 5-minute portion here, or should she resign and get one more game? If you were Alina, what would you do?
I would resign and get one more game. I would try to, because I mean, I don't think it has that much significance necessarily, but I feel like if you waited it out, you would have this bad taste in your mouth, and I would resign and sort of test Eric in maybe a different opening, but we'll see. I mean, I think she's honestly trying to think and find some sort of way to stave off checkmate, but I feel like Alina will resign and go for another game.
Yeah. She plays knight to g1. Okay. There's no queen g3 type of stuff. It looks really strong, but there's no checkmate. Also.
I mean, no Black can even accumulate the pieces.
And the reason why I asked that, Danya, was because on one hand, as you said, you don't want to go into the next time portion with getting crushed because you didn't know a line that Eric just said. Well, I've seen this before. Casa Corley, another IM, very strong player. Shout out to him. But also, what if you lose that next game that you get? You get one more game before the time's up. Now you're down 3 points heading into the 3-minute time segment. That's not fun either.
No, definitely. And arguments can be made for both sides here. You know, when you lose the last 2 games and you're down by 2, that is indeed very debilitating. One thing Alina could also do during the break is just quickly look up some of these lines. I think that's not against the rules. So we'll see. I mean, for the time being, she's trying to stay in the game. Problem is, literally, it's very hard not to win this game.
Rook takes c3 is probably the easiest. Oh, then there's rook takes f5. So it's not quite winning yet, but I wanted to remove the knight so I get bishop e4 with a mating net here. Bishop takes h3 is good. Rook takes c3 as mentioned is good. Is there anything that's not good here? Probably giving away your queen for free. But other than that.
Yeah, something like queen g2 check, I think, might be, going a little
queen
bit
takes
overboard.
h3 check? No, that doesn't work. But that's how good Black's position is.
Yeah, it's never a good sign when you're rook takes c3 is immediately winning.
Well, that's what I was saying, but rook takes f5. And
rook f5, okay.
The bishop wants to get to e4, of course. So maybe bishop g6. Just hold off the rook takes c3 move for one turn.
This too.
Eric says, give me my 4th extra pawn. So
yeah, at this point, Alina, with sort of the last chance to resign, start a new game. So I guess we'll see what strategy she employs.
Yeah, so many mating nets possible. Bishop g2 check, queen h4 to follow as mate. Just rook e8, bringing your other rook in. Just too many options.
Yeah, I mean, bishop g2 is immediate mate, as you say. I mean, I feel like Eric can just sit here and enjoy life for a little bit. I'm sure he sees all of these wins, but he's just savoring this game in his opening preparation. And time is up, so I guess I don't think Alina decided to milk the clock. I think she's honestly playing. Now she's going to resign, though.
Yes, after queen h4 check, it's about time. You have to block with the knight, and now you lose your queen after rook g3. She does resign. That means the 5-minute time control with that 1 second increment is done. We have a clear leader. That's Eric Rosen, up 2 games now over Alina Kashlinskaya. Alina will have to work on some of these openings. She's not getting the position she would like. Eric seeming like the better prepared player on both sides with both colors here. And Danya, any final thoughts about that 5-minute segment before we go to break?
Well, it was all about opening preparation. I think Eric, Alina showed incredible tenacity some of these games, but when all is said and done, Eric's just incisive opening preparation. He reaches the position he likes, especially in this last game. So very impressive job on that front. Alina will have to do something about those openings because she'll have even less time to mount a resistance, when she reaches undesirable positions. So we'll see how that all unfolds, but we'll let the players refill their coffees and take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, now Alina was great in the 3-minute portion against Krzysztof Zielecki, so we'll see if she can replicate that success. In the meantime, everybody stretch your legs, get your brains fresh, because we'll have great chess ahead of us in the 3-minute portion. We will be right back. And we have this excellent I Am Now GM Speed Chess Championship brought to you by Chess.com. And we figured, hey, what better question to ask today than what other Speed Chess Championship should be included in the SEC series? One that involves Daniel Naroditsky is one that I would be supportive of. So what do you think, Danya? Any ideas? And people get involved with hashtag Speed Chess, by the way, and should get involved.
Well, if it involves Daniel Naroditsky, it has to involve Robert Hess as well. But there are a lot of possibilities in all seriousness. Something maybe that features untitled players, but Blitz specialists. Maybe a collection of players who are NMs or FMs or lower, but very, very known to be very good at Blitz and Bullet. That would be one thought. But I'm very excited to hear what people have to say in that regard. And in these tournaments, I think at the very start, Robert, there were some arguments about, well, they're not grandmasters. What could be so interesting about that? We have seen one incredibly combating, just edge of your seat match after another. So I think these players have put their hearts out. I am just having so much fun watching each and every match. It's really a blessing.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal start to what has been an excellent event, and this match is no exception to that. We've seen Eric Rosen jump out to a 4.5, 2.5 lead. He won his first round matchup over Elliot Pates, and IM Kashlinskaya won that really close match against Chess Explained. And there's more action to continue, not just in this one, but tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's 5 p.m. Pacific. I don't know where you all live, viewers, but wherever it is, look up the time. You should be tuning in for the matchup between Levi Rosman, that's Gotham Chess, and Teddy Coleman, the player who defeated Danny Wrench in the opening round. So another good matchup ahead of us. But hey, let's go no further than this one. They're playing the 3-minute plus 1 second increment right now. The action is underway, and surprise, surprise, Danya, we have Bishop F4 on move 2 by Eric Rosen.
First time Eric has ever played that move. Really going out on a limb. But Alina changing up her strategy. This move, Bishop G4. I've seen it before. It's an interesting option. And Eric deciding to go with Knight F3 instead of F3. I like what she's done here. This is not going to be, Eric's not going to come out of the gates here with a mating attack. That Bishop on G4 tying down the Knight. This is more of a positional line.
It is, and that's where the break comes in really handy, because Alina is down 2 games in the match score. She has proven to be a really good 3-minute player. But the fact that you can take a breath and then go look at an opening, say, this hasn't been working out for me. I'm getting pretty much checkmated, or I feel like I'm on the verge of getting checkmated. So let me switch gears and go to something that is more solid, as you pointed out. And here, Alina moving very quickly, moving confidently, and moving well, because I actually really like these positions from the black side, especially if you can make sure that this pawn F4 has to be thought about from White's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it might appear that White has a bind going in the center, but with that being said, Queen C7 always hits that pawn F4. White doesn't really want to play a move like G3 because that introduces more weaknesses on the king side. I feel like Black's Knight E4 here. Definitely, Alina has solved her opening problems, and she's got a comfortable position here. But obviously, the fight is still ahead, but I definitely think she's relieved not to be getting checkmated out of the opening as she was in that line and having to defend with every ounce of strength. Here, she can play a little bit quicker, and she's gotten a position she likes.
Yeah, look at her move, Rook C8. Very normal move that has a semi-open file. You should put your rook on it. And the question now becomes, what actually is Black's plan? It looks like you've staved off White's plans, but do you have any plans of your own? And those are not that easy to come up with. She's looking at B5, perhaps a B4, trying to break through on the queen side. But anytime I see a B5, I can just play A3 if I want to stop B4. So it's not that easy for Black to come up with something concrete just yet. And if you move this knight away from D7, then F5 is a much more kind of dangerous threat as you lose the ability to play E6 to E5 in response.
Yeah, and A4 here, Eric does stop B5, and again asks Alina the question of, well, what is your long-term plan here? How are you going to improve the position? My long-term plan and my short-term plan is to grab the T that I forgot on my counter. So I will let you take the wheel for about 7 seconds, Robert.
Well, I'm glad that you can make your tea and drink it too. And in the meantime, we look at Alina's Knight C5 coming right after that pawn A4. One of the downsides of pushing your pawn, you may have stopped Black's plan to go B5, but you put your pawn in a square that it can be targeted on. Now F5 by Eric, exactly what I was anticipating. The knight moved away, so there's no longer E5 as a resource for Black. And now this is a really interesting position where the e6 pawn, if it's captured, it becomes a real target. Whereas if this pawn did not go to f5 and capture on e6, it felt like a safe pawn chain. Lena doesn't want to capture on f5, that's for sure. You capture on f5, here comes the knight to f5 coming into e7. So Danya, what kind of tea did you make?
Vanilla something, vanilla herbal. It's got a lot of names. I feel like Eric Rosen would like that tea. It's not caffeinated, which I'm not a big fan of, but I just had a big coffee before this. So just pulling an Eric Rosen and trying to be zen about this. Or as Carissa would say, just say namaste and chill out.
Wow. Well, way to go, citing interviews from our players in previous matches. Carissa Yip will play Greg Shahade in another quarterfinal matchup. But Danya, you look at this, you have your tea, you're ready to analyze this position. An annoying thing from White's perspective is this e6 pawn looks really weak, but you can't play b4 because then your c3 pawn is equally, if not even weaker than this pawn e6. So rook e7 play. There have to be some tactics here.
My sense of my alarms are going off, but maybe you should just double on the e file, but that seems like a bit of a cop-out. There's got to be some
c4. What about c4?
I like it. C4 just crashing through b4. So he decides to go. But what does he want on knight e4? Does he want to take on e4? But what's the follow-up? Rook e4 ge.
Yeah.
I
was talking about that before. I really didn't like b4, and then b4 happens, and he must have been so focused that knight takes a4. That's a free pawn. You think, I'm sacrificing a pawn, and then your opponent ignores that pawn and puts the knight in the center, where c3 is really under attack, and you're like, oh, shoot, wait a second. That was the wrong way to go.
Yeah, this is all of a sudden threatening to fall apart here for White. Importantly, rook e4, de, knight f5. There's e takes f5, counterattacking the queen. That's a very unpleasant detail for Eric. Maybe f3. Okay, he goes rook d3. He's trying to keep things patched together. But, if worst comes to worst, Alina can double up on the e-file, and the immediate problem of that e6 pawn is going to be resolved.
Right, because you protect e6 with all your pieces. Rook e3, though, for White. So I'm not sure exactly how resolved it is. And the e6 pawn can't move. The e6 pawn couldn't move a second ago because the rook on c8 was hanging, but it still can't move because knight f5 forks the queen on d6 and the rook on e7. So you're a little tied down, but f3 is a weakening move. We have to admit that. If you do play f3, and I like this move a5, now knight f6 hits the queen on g4. This seems like a misplayed position here for Eric. And now e6 is protected, take on b4. Steal that pawn.
Yeah, cb queen b4. Not only is the position falling apart, the time situation starting to fall apart as well.
Queen takes b4 is a free pawn, by the way.
Wait,
because
so
knight e6, you have queen back to b6, I think.
Now, White's black spoiled for choice. Queen h4, knight h4, king f7, for example.
No, queen h4, knight e7 check.
Oh my goodness! Oh man!
Wow, that's a good tactic there. You get a check, and the queen.
That is a great tactic.
Captured here.
Wait a minute. Sick. What does Black do?
That is sick.
That's brilliant by Eric. And so quickly too. He is just so sharp at these small tactics. That's such a talent of his. That makes him such a dangerous blitz player. But still, Alina's got the initiative. But that pawn on d3 now becoming a weakness. Rook double on the d file.
Yeah, just protect. Yeah, this is too slow for Black here. Rook c2 will be just one check if you can even get it. How about e5, e4 was an option?
Check. Now he's going to gobble on b7.
But the king on g6 is actually quite safe.
Yeah, good point. Now the rook on d2 is
2 seconds.
What does he do?
2 seconds.
1 second.
Oh my gosh, you barely wait, that's losing. Queen
now queen d2. Queen d2 wins the game.
And you get a queen.
Oh my goodness.
And do you play queen h6 just to try to flag him first?
You can always repeat.
I would go queen h6. I would have tried to flag him.
Okay, now
queen f1. Oh my gosh, there's no mate there?
Mating.
There has to. Queen f1 and the king h6 or something
or queen g2. Yeah, knight e5 is also good. Now she's got to see queen. Okay. Now queen e4. Queen e4.
Oh no! King f6.
King f6.
But then a7.
Queen h4, g5, and queen h3.
G5, queen h3, nice. And then
not like that. No, king h5.
No, not there. Wait, how could you stop the pawn?
Oh, queen takes. What just happened? Oh my goodness.
No way.
This is unbelievable. King f6 though. Where's the and he promotes.
But queen
there's nothing. Queen c4, queen e4.
Queen 4. Oh, queen 2.
Queen e2.
Oh my! Queen h5. It's a
queen g2. Oh my goodness! By the last
resource. My goodness, she had checkmate.
What did we just see?
we have to pull up the announcement really quickly because we were freaking out. The players had no time on their clocks. But just to pull up this game really quickly, that last one, because earlier in it Alina was just winning.
What in the world?
She promoted, and then she went knight to d5. She could have moved her king first, but knight d5, and then knight e3, and after queen e4 check, a7, she had to go queen f1 check, king h4, g5 check, king h5, queen h3 check, and the only way to stop the mate is with queen h4, and I just simply take your queen, and your king is going to get made the next move. So unfortunately for Alina, in that critical moment, she was unable to secure the full point. And go back to the live game, and she has the white pieces. She's trying to claim space. But Danya, that might have been a match changer right there.
Indeed. And even after knight f5, their h5 was when Alina just losing her cool. And that just happens sometimes. You know, we look at it from the side and we see that she's got 8 seconds. And we think that's a lot of time. But when you're in the hot seat and you see your time ticking down, that can lead to some very irrational decisions. That's huge. That extends the lead to 3. And we see Alina just very calm, very professional, but in her mind, she's just got to be, thinking some unpleasant thoughts. And it's just so hard to be objective after something like that.
And kudos to Eric for finding that knight f5 takes e7 check tactic, because we're looking at the position. Alina's outplaying him. And I think that he sort of stumbled into a nice tactic. He sort of was getting outplayed. Not sort of. He definitely was getting outplayed. And then he finds this tactic, and you're like, whoa, Eric Rosen, watch out. But he just didn't have that much time on his clock. And he was very fortunate that Alina could not find the knockout blow and win the game. But right now with the white pieces, Alina is up 35 seconds. And look at how much space she has. This is a standard opening line. It's not like Black has done anything wrong, but I just think that generally speaking, you feel more comfortable with the white side, and note that f4 to f5 is an idea that.
But takes a6 and b5. Sorry to interrupt you. It takes a6 and b5. I feel like that's just devastating.
But then you have rook c8 for Black at the end. So I take on b5, knight b5, rook c8.
Why are you good at chess? I'm sick of commentating with someone who's good.
Although you might have c6 to start, and then it kicks the knight out, and then knight b5. But you have to always think deeply about pushing that c pawn too much, but it might work out for you. So she's doing it.
Yep. Rook c8 though.
But
very clever. I mean, I feel like that's the only move. Otherwise, it's just crushing.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric definitely missed this, I think, but
yeah, it looks like somehow is Black really escaping in that line though? I'm not sold just yet. So here it comes. So knight b8 played. And that pawn's looking real good there.
That knight on b5 too just cannot really be dislodged. It can be supported with a4. Maybe knight d7, knight b5, and a4. Otherwise, it's an eternal knight, as the Russians say. Or maybe knight a7. I mean, somehow, trying to, defend a little bit. But okay, but actually, in all seriousness, how does white stop knight a7?
I don't see a clear way just yet, but give me a second. I'll figure it out. Some kind of, yeah, that's actually
rook a b1.
Rook a b1 hangs the a3 pawn, which is what I'm annoyed about.
Yeah, I was thinking of sacking, going rook c6 at the end.
Then I have rook a7, and I just win your c pawn anyway, right? So
and you've got bishop f8.
Is rook b1, knight b5, rook b5, bishop a3, rook c6, and then rook a7. And the point is that after you take on b6, there's no back rank checkmate like you would like to have happen, because the bishop retreats all the way to a f8 in that variation. So just a quick thing to show you all. a4 played. I like this move because now if you win b6, the a5 pawn will become weak, but the bishop can land on b4 in many of these sequences, which protects that potentially a weak a pawn. So king f8 played. I'm not sure I like that move.
Whoa, that is just playing with some serious fire. But king e8, and he's taking the d7 square under control. So king e8,
rook a to b1,
right, and then knight takes b5, rook b5, rook a7.
Wait a second, Danya. After king e8, can I even play knight to c6 somehow? Okay, so this is not going to happen.
But now white needs to be precise. Rook a7,
knight d7 check,
king e8, and you take on b6. I take on c7. How convincing is that?
I don't feel thoroughly convinced.
Yeah. Because in the end, there's this rook b7 move, and all of a sudden there's...
Wait a sec. Go knight a4. So rook takes c7. I think you go knight a4. Just threaten b6.
But rook c1, rook b7.
Okay, she just takes the pawn. I was thinking rook b7 here.
Yeah, me too. And then rook a bishop. Again, this bishop covering
knight
the check.
c8. Knight c8, maybe?
Maybe. You mean immediately here.
Yeah.
Bishop b4.
Oh, this is like
It's
so
just
close.
starting to crumble for white because that pawn on b5, as long as it's contained. Yeah. Oh, now.
That's a nice move. Bishop d8, b6.
And bishop b4, there's rook a8. Okay, bishop d8. Yeah, b6. King d7.
No, knight
Ah,
c5.
that knight c5.
So the king can go e7 to d6 and try to approach that way.
But king e7, rook a7.
Rook a7, exactly.
Exactly.
That's really nice. So the king can't get to d7. Oh, this can't be good.
No, king d7 again, b7 or knight c5. Wow. Very interesting complications here.
And way to bounce back for Alina, b7. For sure. Okay, checked here and then b7.
I think bishop f6 there was a good try for black instead, trying to get around at the other side. Bishop takes d4.
Oh, good call. That pawn was hanging on d4.
I actually think that might have been a serious resource. But now the problem is king c6, b7, king b5, rook a8, and white takes on b8 and goes knight d7.
So rook a8?
Yep, I think this is over red rover, unless I'm missing something.
I don't think you are.
Usually there's something I miss. But you know what Eric's going to do? He's going to go bishop c7. He's going to sack that bishop for the pawn, go king c4.
Well, don't queen yet. So after rook b8, knight d7, play king f3.
You can even queen and go knight c6 against bishop c4.
Oh, true. True. That's actually a really nice way to protect the pawn. So you get a queen, and once we get this queen, the knight will come to c6, as Danya's saying, and this is exactly what's going to happen. And once the knight gets to c6, it's going to d8, where it hits f7.
Oh, that's painful. That's a shot to the gut. And king f3, very controlled move by Alina.
There's knight d8. And you just start scooping up the pawns one by one. That pawn's not going anywhere.
Knight g5, d4, knight takes c6 also wins.
Aha, you sneaky guy.
Well,
so Danya's trying to let the pawn go. So knight g5, d4, knight takes e6, d3. You think that pawn's queening, then you have this knight c5 move. So I can show that maybe in a second, and I will after this game is over. But for now, 1.4 seconds left for Eric Rosen. We'll let him lose. Oh my gosh!
Oh my god, and he's gonna lose. Yeah.
How did he get that move off?
That's some magic.
So we're going to pull that up in the analysis board because I do like what you just pointed out, Danya. That was a really instructive endgame maneuver where after we got to this position with knight capturing on f7, knight g5, d4, knight e6, d3, it looks like this pawn is just queening with the help of the king. But Danya saw knight to c5, and after d2, you have knight e4 check. And what you're doing is sacrificing the knight for the pawn. And note, you have two extra pawns here for white. And so you just start pushing your pawns and win the game. So really nice vision there by you, Danya. We're back to the live board.
Very weird opening.
Yeah, a bishop on b4, a bishop on g4, and queen to b3 here just looks like a good move for white, saying, hey, that bishop is kind of hanging over here.
Yeah, I think Alina might have dumped a little too much Tabasco sauce on that opening, and it might backfire. I mean, this idea with leaving that bishop on g4 is interesting because that knight on g4 is annoying, but queen b3, like you said, Robert, I'm not buying this concept entirely.
Maybe queen b3, knight c6 is the planned response because this is actually somewhat thematic. If you go a3, I have knight takes d4, and you can't take my bishop because I have knight c2 forking the house. So knight c6 gains you an important tempo, and she plays c5 first, but she's striking at the center. It's not like white is developed.
That's true. I'm skeptical, but I'm also, I admire the bravery here. That knight on g4, it's flimsy, but it's also so annoying just pressuring f2. I really like that move c5. Oof. This just feels so flimsy for Eric as well. cd is actually a threat now. ed knight takes d4, and you can't capture that bishop on b4 because of a fork on c2.
Exactly. So just to show that, you can't take b4. Still, that knight c2 check. Devious.
d4 or not?
No, d4 looks good to me.
Huh.
In fact, what do you do after d4?
You can't castle because f2 hangs. You can go, rook d1. There's dc and c2. Oh.
c2, and that's a check to the king. And
there we see it.
Promoting.
Maybe Eric has to take on d4, go queen d1, but that can't be good. Queen f6. Black just mows down all these pieces.
After ed4, can I just play queen takes d4 too?
Absolutely. Wow.
I go just right after your f2 pawn. Your king's in the center.
Jeez. And look at Alina with a recovery after that incredibly tilting game. Just the composure. A great game. Last round, Rook D1 played. Now DC, maybe he wants BC?
Yes. DC, BC, and your claim is that the queen on D8 is under attack. Even their queen A5, I mean, I don't know if you're really getting away with this.
Queen A5 is a very strong move, I think.
This feels suspicious, to say the least.
Yeah, queen A5, CB, knight B4. I just don't see a way to... I mean, look at White's kingside. You called this, Robert. It's, White has no development going on the kingside. And Black's all of her pieces in the game. That's just going to haunt Eric here.
So what is she thinking about? Is there some kind of bishop takes... No, bishop C3 doesn't make sense to me. So it's really queen A5.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I don't see a downside to queen A. I mean, I'm sure there are some, resources. Maybe queen A5, CB, knight B4, and then just say, you know what, king E2. It's desperate situations call for desperate measures, and sometimes it's hard to actually collect, and hunt down the king in the center like this. Rook D8, there's bishop D6.
I would have thrown in E5 first for precisely that reason.
Exactly. Great point.
E5 here was saying, I'm shutting your bishop off from the D6 square. Instead, Rook D8 and bishop D6 and knight A6. Okay, if I can win the C5 pawn, you're pinned along the diagonal. Your bishop can't move because then the rook on D2 just lost. Knight takes F2 is a threat now.
It is. Yeah, that's actually in the mix. So something like bishop E2 can be met with knight takes F2. Good tactical eye. And how do you actually deal with that? I mean, this knight A6 looks unassuming. Maybe queen B5 here, but then queen C3.
You know what I might try here, Danya, is bishop D3, knight F2, castles kingside. It looks ridiculous.
Wow.
Maybe I have enough compensation somehow with my bishop pair.
I feel like that's what he's going for. That's actually a beautiful idea, because then actually queen takes D2, rook F2, queen E3, there's bishop H7.
Exactly.
And you just might be the Eric Rosen whisperer. We'll see what he does here. But
I don't think it works. Honestly, it should just be losing. There are also knight takes C5 ideas, right? So actually, if you castle kingside, queen D2, rook F2, can I play just knight takes C5? No, I can't, because rook D2, knight B3, A B3, rook D6 is bishop H7 check. Once more, this discovery on H7 tells the tale.
So he does this, which does allow him to pick off the knight. The problem here is simply knight takes C5. Look at that move, F5. Brilliant.
Beautiful.
Because now the E4 square for the knight is going to be devastating.
Wow, that was awesome. F5, just blocking the check and reinforcing your kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just your stranglehold on the E4 square. Even if that weren't a check, the knight wants to get to a light square outpost because it's a dark square bishop. And White's not even up material for his difficulties here. Great concept. Knight E4 now. You win the bishop on D6.
Rushing, and Eric paying the price here that, for his lack of development and that opening strategy by Alina. She's radically switched up her concept from orthodox play to these unconventional bishop G4 lines, but they've worked out. But never count Eric out. He's going to fight until the last drop of blood.
And that bishop on D6 is a very powerful piece. So what Alina is trying to do is actually, if she can, play B6 and just remove that defender of the bishop, because the bishop does look really strong. If you can imagine that B pawn not being on the board, then the bishop will just stay there for the rest of the game. And Eric tries to swing that rook to H3, but queen B1 check should pick up the E4 pawn.
Ooh, I thought rook C5 there was winning, but now queen E4. And for the time being, Black's king is safe. Alina can push her C pawn.
That is a greedy move, queen takes A2.
That is a greedy move. And now queen G6. Look at Eric just with no time on the clock. He keeps finding resources.
Rook B4. Ooh, rook B4 to G4 was nasty.
Yep. Now H5 is still an idea.
Wait a second. How do you protect E6? Because H5, H6.
Exactly. Okay, you've got to play queen B3 and F4.
Maybe queen
B3
E4.
and F4.
Oh, okay, that's also good.
Okay.
I was thinking queen E4, just giving up the E6 pawn and trying to run.
Oh, queen H4.
And nice, queen takes H6. Just in the nick of time. Gosh, this game really had me nervous there. King F7. Go king, queen C1 and king F7.
Eric reminded me of like a video game boss where you chop off his legs, he keeps fighting, you chop off his head, he keeps on fighting. So just admirable by Eric, but there's too many pawns and he wins C6. I mean,
he's winning the C4 pawn.
Or is he?
Where's that rook going?
Alina playing with some fire here.
Queen H4 check. She's defending the rook with a check. And then Wait,
Good
bishop
move.
e7 is rook d1 mate. That's a really nice move.
Rook h. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That rook is stuck. Like, it's super
Queen
annoying.
e8.
Queen e8 is rook b7. So
Okay,
rook
now
b7.
rook b7. Finally, freedom. And Eric
check,
no time.
rook
Now
b1,
it's mate.
and queen h4 mate. Oh, queen f4, rook b2, queen. How do you?
King d4, it's so slippery.
Rook f1, queen g3, and then rook h1 mate.
She's
Finally,
not going to let the king out of her clutches here. Wow.
This match has been just really keeping me nervous for both these players.
One incredible battle after another with so many phases. And Eric with the resilience, but I'm so impressed. Alina, after that loss, I can't get over the fact that she maintained her composure. She's won 2 in a row. These are critical wins, bringing the match back under control with 20 minutes left in the 3-minute portion.
And she goes back to this line here with putting pressure on the d5 pawn, the c7 square. I think that Eric probably should change up from this. I'm not really enjoying the position he has from the black side. It might just be personal preference, and I just don't feel comfortable when I have no space for my pieces as he does here. But he's going to it. He thinks that it's a reliable resource against this opening. Queen a4, just tickling the a6 pawn comes to mind.
Yep, good idea. Inducing b5, and that weakens the c5 square. Now, we saw the last time this happened, Eric eventually managed to whip up some play on the king side. Here, Alina with the strong move, bishop e5. It's just a very pleasant position for white. I agree.
It certainly is. Knight g6. So, Eric, going back to this little 2 knights tango of knight f6, knight g6, we've seen this game after game. And now bishop f5 comes in with the tempo. So you always have to be on alert for that move as the c7 pawn is an issue.
Yeah. And it's just annoying that you can never capture on e5.
Wait a second.
Whoa.
Something about this looks...
Yeah, I think we both kind of noticed the same thing at the same time, but maybe this holds together.
I think it does.
The last time Eric played this, c7 was not protected by a rook. Importantly here, there's no bishop takes c7 monkey business. But I like what Alina does here. Now e4 is weak. The queen on b3 pinning the f-pawn, so there's no f5. And interesting position here.
Would like to take the bishop and have 2 bishops against 2 knights, but opening the d file when your queen can't really get out the way is not a good idea.
But
so
what about take c5 and queen d7?
Well, then I just take on... I see what you're trying to do there.
Yeah.
You are a sneaky, sneaky guy.
Well, thank you.
You
I'll
said
take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. But I actually think in that line, if we look at it, knight e5, de5, queen d7, knight e4, queen f5, I was going to go e6. Just trying to give up my pawn on a worse square for you. And that way you have to compromise your pawn structure.
That's a good move. But as you pointed out, I also like the 2 bishops. Okay, so he goes for bishop d6.
Can you
and against yeah. Because knight e5, that's just gonna leave him with that terrible pawn structure. Okay.
So f4, is there some kind of knight takes e5? No way.
I think he missed because wait, f4, knight e5,
knight
fe
g5.
and rook t4. That.
No, yours is better.
He blundered f4, I'm pretty sure. Maybe f4, bishop e4, and knight e5.
But then there's knight g5. Maybe that doesn't lose, actually, because after knight g5, you have h6. What we're saying is f4, bishop e4, knight takes e5. The point is that the knight on e4 is under attack. So you'd like to make the move knight g5 as a response saying, hey, your knight's stuck to protecting f7. Then you go h6 is black. You take my knight, I take yours.
Can I just share a line with you?
Yes.
There's this line, knight e5, knight d6.
Yep.
Queen g5. And then I noticed this idea, probably all wrong, rook g4.
I see what you're doing.
Knight g4, queen f7, and queen e8. I don't know, just came to mind.
To its conclusion. I dragged the wrong piece. And, well, the king is safe for black because White's lost the queen, but White is up a pawn at the end of this very long variation. Nice one, Danya.
Yeah, but knight g3, I feel like Alina missed a chance to really just knock black out here. Now queen g5 and black is in the game, or queen f6.
Rook f4. Or maybe knight d5 here. Okay, knight e4 she chooses. I couldn't figure out which move is right. Hey, Danya, though, look at the time situation. Alina up, 40 seconds? She's really just moving very quickly in this 3-minute portion.
Very impressive, given Eric's the more experienced player, but her time management has been excellent. And you can just sense with the last 2 wins, the confidence level rising. But that was a big misstep by Alina, because now look at that bishop on b7, just slicing through White's position, really tying down those knights. This is a very, very dangerous situation for Alina.
I actually want to play f4 and f5, but I don't think we're able to accomplish that in time. So she retreats her knight to c3, probably evidencing the fact that maybe knight d5 was better than knight to e4. Rook g4, though. Just swing that rook there. G7 is about to fall. Knight h5.
Oh, my goodness.
That was quick.
Wow.
That was a quick turnaround. And
look at that. Just boom, boom. And g7 falls. And this is just indefensible for black.
And what a turnaround for Alina. She lost those final games of the 5-minute. She was then lost.
Filthy knight takes c8 check. That is filthy stuff. Queen G. Oh.
Yeah, and then you just take back here. That's an Eric Rosen type of tactic, and Alina uncorks that one. But what I was going to say, Danya, is she went down 3 games, and now she has to win her 3rd straight game. And that's huge. She missed that win and lost that game where she allowed Eric to promote when Eric was down a piece. But since then, she's gone on a tear, and she has proven the dominant player in the 3-minute plus 1 second increment time segment here.
Absolutely. And just incredible composure. And I keep mentioning it, but it impresses me so much because I would not be capable of something like that in all honesty. So, I mean, it just shows the resilience, the desire to win. And Alina's just been so impressive in the 3-minute portion in both of these matches. And she's got to be a little bit careful here. We all know what Eric is capable of, so a few more precise moves required. But, there's a wide margin for error here.
Yeah, she's just going to try to win that f7 pawn, e4, e5 check, and then mow down the 7th rank.
Exactly. Many plans here. That's exactly what she does. Very practical, just crushing through black's. Rook d8 trades rooks. I guess that's fine as well.
And Eric down to 10 seconds to Alina's minute. So knight c5 hits the e4 pawn. And as you said, you have to watch out if you are Alina, because b4 is another idea for black, just challenging this knight on c3. Maybe some kind of knight d5 check is going to be possible, but your e4 pawn is weak, and then down goes f5. So king f2.
Okay, whoa.
Knight d5. Throw that check in.
Yep. And now rook d5, knight e4, king e3. Not the best conversion, but
wait, knight d3 check?
Uh-oh.
There's some knight there was taking on b2.
Now king e5. There's still some intrigue left.
Eric being tricky, but knight a4 is b3, so I get to protect my pawn, and then play rook a8.
Well, that's a buzzsaw. Rook a8, just mowing down the pawns. Okay, but now the pawn is not actually hanging. I would play f6. Don't take on. Okay.
Yep, she sees it. She sees it. Oh, nice little try there, winning the d pawn.
Every last chance by Eric. I mean, just look at this. So with no time on the clock.
So king a4 will screw up the a5 pawn. Oh, Eric's going for it. So king a4.
Yeah, the problem is that king on b5 is blockading everything.
That's a good move. b3. Nice
rook
try
h6.
here.
Rook knight c6.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, knight c6. Oh.
No, but there's rook h5, rook b5 at the end.
Oh.
But that was close. That was really close there. And Eric also almost lost some time.
Push your pawn. Nervous.
H4.
Now just g5 and give up the rook for the pawn at the right moment. But knight b3. Don't miss knight b3.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she does not.
Wow. But now that knight, can he chase down the pawns?
No, that was not a good move. Every tempo is important. King b4.
Wait, knight to g5. King b3.
But king b3. King b3.
King b3, king c3. But no,
not like this.
King out.
Not like this. Oh, maybe still winning because king f. Oh, king f.
No, king f5, knight f7 check. Knight f7. Oh, I missed it. He missed knight f7.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
H7 and you win. You push the G pawn and you win.
Oh, my goodness. G5, G6.
Oh, my gosh. We're going to have to look at that game. There were many missed opportunities there. And Eric Rosen, he had just the dwindling seconds on his clock. He was not able to find it. But kudos to Eric, because
he's going to try to pull an Eric here.
Every one of us would have lost that game earlier. And Eric somehow almost swindled a half point. As we start the next game, I'm pulling out the analysis board. We will look at that in a little bit more detail, because holy smokes, Eric Rosen, just go back to where that pawn was rolling for black. The B pawn got all the way down, and Danya was looking at knight c6 check, and if the king came to a4, b2, it looks like the rook is cut off. Actually, it was cut off. Wait, you were totally right.
Oh, my goodness.
He had it here. He had it there.
No, but rook h5, knight e5.
Yep, exactly. Rook h5, knight e5, and the rook cannot get there, and the pawn is queening. So Eric missed one opportunity there just because
to win. Yeah.
He went king c4, the rook came back, and then finally, we were talking about this line here. What Alina needed to do is keep the black king stuck on the first rank for as long as possible before bringing the king in. Then the kings came, and here, critical moment, king f3 blunder, knight f7 check, picked up the h-pawn, and black survives. So let's go back to the live position because a lot has happened. I see a pawn on g5, but kudos to Eric Rosen for somehow, some way, every single game providing us just the utmost entertainment. Watch out for knight d2 winning an exchange.
This is incredible. One game after another, just a dogfight. I am so impressed with Eric's resilience. I mean, we played a game at the US Junior, I think in 2011, and that is the first time I got a taste of who Eric is. I mean, I was up a full rook in that game, and I lost. He found one incredible chance after another, but here he's lost the thread of it. But knight f5 there. Yeah, now I don't think he's got enough for the exchange, although Alina has significantly weakened her king side. So this is going to unfold in a very interesting fashion.
And I like the decision to take on d4 because what happens when you're up in exchange, if no files are open, the rooks are not that powerful. And actually, if you look at this starting position right now, it does kind of have that feeling that white's minor pieces are doing very well because the g4 pawn is under attack. I'm threatening knight takes f5 to remove the defense of the d5 pawn. So I would just take back probably with the rook on c3. I want to swing that rook over to the king side. And because only white has a dark square bishop, if you ever make a move like knight f6, bishop e5 feels very powerful.
Good points. I like what Alina's doing here. Basically opening up the center. Maybe the rook is going to come into play on c8 at some point. But Eric, he's got to just bank on his king side play. That bishop d3 check, though, tying that bishop to the pawn. I think Alina's, without a doubt, objectively better, but maybe bishop e5 here, as you pointed out, Robert.
Just keep black a bit tied down. The d4 pawn will be protected. The knight on f6 is kind of pinned, if you will, because it needs to stay protecting the king.
And if knight d5, then maybe bishop takes e6, because h4 is hanging. Are there any swindle? Knight e4 is a very good move.
Great move there by Alina. And she found it very quickly.
Look at just incredible. Bishop e6, there's queen takes h4, shutting down any chances of queen g4 check.
So should you just go knight f3 and give up the rook? I guess the problem there is that I'll take your rook and then try to play for f6 at some moment.
Rook takes d3, does something similar, maybe queen d3, but then after queen h4, queen e4, there's the move f5, forcing a trade of queens.
Big issue, as Don is pointing out, is if you give up, and this is what's happening, knight takes f2 is technically possible, but it's way too risky, so this is a way better decision. How about h5 here? Just not to give up a pawn.
Interesting, because f5, bishop f5, that endgame is surprisingly not easy to win.
And f5, bishop f5, queen f4, bishop e6 would almost be checkmate if this were a bishop on f8 instead of a rook. But you're right. This endgame here is not as easy as you would like. The bishops are so powerful.
Definitely. And white's got some pawns to how many? 3, 6. He's got 6 against 4. So that is far from elementary. Queen g5. Okay. So queen c1 checkmate being threatened.
Is that a big threat, queen c1?
Nah, it's pretty small. You don't really have to deal with it.
And f5, also pretty big threat. Winning the bishop.
Queen g5. How does white deal with both of these at the same time?
Bishop e2 feels like the only option.
Yeah, then maybe rook c8. I mean, it's still not easy. Those bishops are monsters.
And what you need to do is white, like bishop e2, pawn h4, like try to keep up the pressure on the black king because the king is exposed over there with no g-pawn. But bishop e2, there might be queen f5, some kind of, then f6. You're sort of shoring up your king. He plays h4 right away.
Wait a minute.
Think about that.
Queen c1 and f5. He wants queen takes b7. What about f5 here?
F5?
But then bishop e6.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Again, those incredibly resilient resources in every position. She just says, I'm going to take this pawn. Prove it. Prove it, Eric.
And what's Eric going to do now? Is he going to play g3? He's also down 1 minute and 20 seconds every single game.
It's the way she's turned on just the velocity is unbelievable. G3, just go back to g5. Remember, white's down 2 exchanges. Now he's only up a pawn for those exchanges. He still has his bishops, but just not quite getting as much counterplay as he needs here. Maybe rook a c8 and trying for rook c1 check. That's exactly what she does.
I like the queen on h6 instead of queen g5 because if the queen were on h6, you would threaten queen h1 mate at the end of these rook c1 lines. Okay, rook c1, queen h6.
How do you defend against that?
You can't. Queen h6.
My goodness, and look at the speed once again. Every single move is played fast and confidently.
So he's pre-moving king g3 here, I would imagine. So I'd almost play with like queen h4, try to flag.
How about rook c7?
Yeah, rook c. No,
that would be an Erditsky special.
That'd be too much. But queen h1 check, king g3. How do I finish that game?
Rook g1 check.
King f4. Like, this king is trying to...
Queen h6 check. We all know how dangerous Eric's king can be in the open.
Yeah, the king is just going to run back to d3 and then maybe all the way to the queen side to a6. Whoa, f6.
Bishop h2 played very fast by Eric.
I don't think I like f6.
I don't like f6. That plugs the h file.
Maybe f5? She's going to play for f5. Okay, f5.
Yeah, f5.
Take on g.
Time. Dude, and the bishop's got to stay on that diagonal, otherwise queen e4 check.
Exactly. So bishop beat. Oh,
and now queen e4 resigns.
What?
Ooh.
Nope.
Oh,
she played too quickly.
But it was enough because Eric just with 1 second, impossible to defend. And it was lost anyway after queen e4 next move.
Wow. So IM Kashlinskaya takes the lead.
At this.
She has time for, there's 5 minutes and 40 seconds remaining on the timer for the 3-minute portion. She would love to get another victory and keep on pushing in the 3-minute portion. But if I'm Eric and I get a tough position, I mean, he's always playing it out till the very end. But something about this gives me the notion that he probably prefers to try to duke it out in the bullet rather than in this 3-minute portion.
Yeah, I think Eric is confident in his bullet skills. Once again, he's very experienced. But, they've gotten this type of position a couple of times. And by the way, f5.
Yeah, what's
f5 was just, ooh. But maybe AB. Maybe black holds on there. But still, I like this position. I feel like Alina is very, very strong in these positions with a space advantage, additional pressure.
Sorry, that move A4 is just like asking to be played.
Yep, but what about AB there?
That's the problem. I was thinking of knight takes B5. I wasn't sure about a piece sacrifice. It's a peace offering, if you will. And CB, AB, something like this. I don't believe in it. It looks too risky.
That was I just let it be known. Everybody might have missed that pawn, but I didn't. I'm always there for you, Robert.
I appreciate
it. Now f5.
F5. Then knight f8. But that doesn't look very
Still,
good.
that pawn on e6, that's been a theme throughout the match. A weak pawn on e6. Although maybe f takes c6, knight takes c6. And white's got to be careful, too. It's easy to overextend yourself in these situations. By the way,
go ahead.
Knight takes b5 here. Not possible with a rook on a8. But Alina's got to make a mental note to herself. If the rook ever leaves a8, these knight takes d5, knight takes b5 ideas become possible.
I was looking that way earlier. Watch out for knight e4 because the knight on c3 is pinned and this pawn h5 is under attack. So knight f6, dual purpose move here. And I guess knight e4 is not actually a big threat. I just swing my rook to c1 to protect it. So I'm going to calm down, recognize that there is a pin, but it's not so dangerous. And now this pawn h6 might be a goner. I'm worried about that because bishop f8, just snagging that pawn h6 feels like it's in black's future.
Yeah, Alina decides to go queen d2 prophylactically. I agree though. Bishop f8. It's not clear who's on the initiative here. Both sides are kind of testing the waters. But that pawn on h6, I'm a little worried about it. And there we see it.
Yeah, rook h1, not the type of move you want to play, but note that the open A file looks wonderful for black, but the only square available is A3 one because the knight on c3 covers A2. Nice move, rook h4. Please take me on h6. I'm swinging my second rook to the h file, and I'm trying to crash through down the line there. Wow, good move. f5 is...
That e6 pawn.
Yeah, that e6 pawn is an eyesore. Knight g5 followed by rook e1 going right after it.
What does black do? Maybe knight back to f6. Because as long as the position's closed, Eric can afford to spend some tempi.
And I was going to say, you just admit that you missed rook h4. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. The position is still closed, as you said. You can afford to make moves that are not of serious consequence because there's no way for white to crash through. But at some moment, you do have to worry about a knight e5 or a knight g5 where white is advancing in the position. But for now, just play knight f6, but don't spend 40 seconds to play knight f6.
Yeah, he's just got to make a decision here. I mean, knight h6, rook h1, I was briefly considering knight f5 and bishop g7, but that's just terrible. I mean, g4 comes in. He's taking too much time here. And again, we see this huge time advantage for Alina that's allowing her to deliver these critical moments.
So what's he thinking about
He's just freezing here, I think, because f5, that can't be good, right? There we see it.
Knight f6.
That should have been played 30 seconds faster.
A minute 18 seconds on knight f6. You just cannot afford to spend that much time on a move like that. And it's not that Eric's playing badly. Of course, that's not what we're suggesting.
No.
It's just that he only has 45 seconds to win this 2 minutes. And Rook H1 played by Alina, just trying to secure the first rank. And to, you could take me there. I even thought I would take it with the D pawn to give the D4
same, that D4 square for the knight, exactly.
Because the knight would have loved to be on D4. But Bishop E7, good move by Eric. He can think about playing his king to E8, for instance. But if I'm Alina, F4, G4, F5. Yeah,
and that knight on C3 doing this very important duty of guarding A2. And it seems like Black has this pressure along the A file, but it's hard to practically take advantage of it.
So is he going to induce F4? The one thing is you can't move your rook away from the H file just yet, because then Bishop G5 comes with the tempo of winning the H pawn. And now I will be ready to take it if you leave it here for this long. So F4 played.
There we go.
So taking Rook A2, I think, is good.
It has to be, right? Because that queen's going to infiltrate to A6. At that point, you can even chuck your pawn on H6.
Don't like that move.
Because if a queen lands on H4, by the way, Bishop F8, G5, Bishop takes H6.
I like the look of
it. Probably doesn't work, though. White's got Rook B1 in the end.
Nice find. Bishop F8, G5, Bishop H6, G8, Queen H4. It looks like you're going for a mating attack.
He does something similar with Bishop C5, but again, that's not the end of the story, though. Black gets a ton of pawns for the piece after Rook B1, Queen G4.
Indeed.
That's a very nice move. Bishop C5.
G4, not the move. Just we knew it instinctively that you had to play Rook A2, go for the A file, and the C6 pawn. That's the critical situation here. And now Alina's thinking, do I play Rook to B1 or Knight to B1? And instead she goes Queen E2. Holy cow. There's no way. Wait, Queen G1 followed by Rook F1?
Wait, but Eric plays... What was Rook G1?
Okay, still winning.
Oh, that still wins. I mean,
wait. G5.
This is like a study.
Knight takes E2. How are you going to beat me here?
Queen A1.
And then?
Bring the king to E8. I would start by just dealing with these long-term mate threats. But where are you going to position the rook? I feel like that's another problem.
You're right. The rook is just out of good move. Knight C1?
Yeah, holds on for now. Now Queen G2, Queen E4 is possible. There's just too much.
Knight D3? Oh, I like Knight D3 there. Knight D3 stopped the B pawn in his strategy.
It did. That's true.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's going to bring the king in, and after that, well, what are you going to do if you're white?
Yeah, it's just an easy position to play in time for sure. Eric, if he needs, can gain some time just by playing King E8, King D7. Alina holding on for the time being, but when the time is right, he can also send that pawn forward.
And he will. He can, and he certainly will. And this looks like...
Oh, this collapses. And that is the last game. So the match will be tied.
Yeah, I mean, a missed opportunity there for Alina. We're going to just go back to that moment. As much as we like to crack jokes at each other's expense, here, if we go back before G4 was played. Rook takes A1. I understand why G4 was played, to go and play G5 and protect this pawn on H6. But that pawn is actually not nearly as important as you would think. Rook A2, saying, well, your rook has nowhere to go. You have to take my rook on A2, Queen A2. And then go ahead, try to win my H6 pawn, because I'm just going to play Queen A6 and go right after your C6 pawn. So the bishop is still entombed by all of the white pawns there. And what's White's idea is Queen A6, reroute the knight to A5, go right after the C6 pawn. And because on a light square, the dark square bishop cannot protect it. But on that note, that's all the instruction we have for just a second. Danya and I will take a quick break. The players are going to stretch their legs, try to refresh, because ahead we have a tied matchup heading to the bullet. Stay tuned, everybody. We will be back in a few. as Jesse J sings, it's not about the money, 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 but there is prize fund at stake here in the I Am Now GM Speed Chess Championship, brought to you by Chess.com. We see that in these quarterfinals, the winner gets $200, and then there's $200 split by win percentage. But more importantly, that winner of this match advances to the semifinals and has a chance for eternal glory.
Absolutely. And speaking of glory, this match is tied. It's a dogfight. And because this match is tied, a quick refresher on what happens if it's tied at the end of the bullet section. We have a 4-game bullet mini match, 1+1 additional 4 games. If there is a winner of that, then they win the match. If the match is still tied after those 4 additional games, there is a single Armageddon game. White has 5 minutes, black has 3 minutes. But of course, as in all Armageddon games, black gets the draw odds. So if black draws the game, then they win the match. And
what do you think? Are we getting to a tiebreak today?
You know what? I don't think so, just because I feel like someone's going to pull away here. I just feel like someone's going to pull away. I have no idea who it is. But as we saw in Teddy against Danny, I certainly wouldn't mind another tiebreak. I mean, those tiebreaks are just edge of your seat entertainment. And this bullet section going to be edge of your seat entertainment as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pull away from you because I'm really just, I'm tired of you today. But no, Dino, it's been great. And I love commentating bullet with you because you're such a fantastic bullet player. I'm not nearly as good as you are in bullet. And you come up with these little tricks and have these ideas where I think that one player will pre-move in this direction. And so I'm going to come up with this idea just to say, if you pre-move there, I win a pawn or I get an advantage in some way. So without further ado, let's bring on the bullet. Everybody, write in the chat who you think is going to win this match. And we have liftoff with E4 by Eric. So none of this London system. He's going for E4. And a Petrov. No. We got to restart the bullet. Come on. No Petrovs in the book. What is...
I think Dini Polito has hacked Alina's account.
And we went from the Petrov into a potential fried liver if knight G5 split into D3. We have an Italian game. How many different openings could we have just seen in the first 5 minutes?
That was a transposition after transposition. Yeah, and finally in Italian with D5, Alina expanding in the center. This is a hard position to play in bullet, though. D5 is a very topical move, but you've got to watch for H3. Black doesn't normally want to give away that bishop.
Right, and here the E5 pawn is the problematic piece. Ooh, wait, what? Okay, H3 played that. You could take on C4, and I think you should. Then you could play F6. And the reason why giving up the bishop is not so good for white is when I play F6, well, first I can play F6, there's no pin, and the light squares don't feel weak when I'm the only one with the light square bishop. So right now, I think Alina is off to a great start in the bullet.
Look at the time.
It's up 17 seconds.
Knight takes C5, though. Eric had knight takes C5 there.
And does he still have it?
No,
the rook on D1. It's hard to say.
Or I wouldn't risk it just because he has 29 seconds. If it backfires, he's got to move his knight back.
Yes, and knight to B8.
Queen D3.
Queen D3 hangs a pawn.
Oh, man. Well, maybe he can take and go something like knight E4 and try to establish a blockade. But, I mean, 33 extra. Alina's just savage here.
I love this. Rook to D8. Go for that C5 blockade. Your C3 pawn won't be too happy about it, but you can go for it.
Yeah, neither will your B4 pawn after that. No, this is just collapsing. Eric could play G4, but now F5 is possible.
And she's saying you're going to have to put your knight on C5. And is she going to take it? I think I would take it.
I would take it. And again, we discussed the opposite colored bishops. That doesn't mean it's a draw. There are rooks on the board. And all of these gaping holes for white. Bishop C4 is possible. Then bring the king in slowly.
Look at the time. How is she up so much time?
It is crazy.
Oh, C4, though. A nice timely shot by Eric.
That just backfired.
She played too quickly. This happens sometimes. Rook D6, B5. And now all of a sudden...
man. And now C7 is lost. And all of a sudden the tables turn. Alina, just way too fast there in that stretch. My goodness. Now he's got the connected passers.
Rook F3. At least, she's going to put a rook on B3. And then the D pawn is good. I think that with proper play...
Oh, my goodness. What was that?
Proper play isn't a thing in bullet chess. Rook A5. Now play this on forever. This is, if I were playing you in a classical game, Danya, I'd probably make you make a bunch of moves, and then you give the proper technique, and split. But
draw, I give you draw. You showed that you can defend this endgame, but okay. But in bullet, I mean, the thing is, this increment is huge here, obviously. Otherwise, this would be flag central, and I think Alina sensibly... I would maybe push like F5 or something, but oh my goodness. Look at that.
E5. Was that a mouse slip or was that intentional?
I think it was intentional, and I think Alina pre-moved to knight f3. I mean, still not bad. They've transposed, again, so many different openings. Budapest to the English. They're going through all the European nationalities here.
Didn't Chess Explained in his match against Alina have this from the white side, if I'm not mistaken? I feel like this was the type of position he went for. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong match.
No. I recognize that structure. You're right.
And you just are going against these c-pawns in the long term. So that's what the problem is for black. Is it's not like, it's the end of the world, double pawns. They aren't so bad, but a queen a4, rook c1, pile up pressure there. Take on c4. I dare you. Have an extra pawn, but with it a triple isolated pawn structure. Still, the c4 pawn can be captured, but it's not going to happen.
Alina's speed is also incredible. Now bishop takes h3 coming. She just has to make the adjustment if she's winning in an endgame, just to consciously slow down. How do you defend against bishop takes h3, though? That's a devastating
f4. Threat. I was about to say that. That's a bishop d3. The b2 pawn's hanging.
I would still maybe take on h3. I know it's definitely on. Oh, he takes b2. That's right.
Yeah.
cd.
Do you have knight takes d5? Is that what you're getting at here?
I think you just might, because there's no discovery, of course. But it's definitely very flimsy. Maybe bishop c5 here.
I was just thinking that.
But then knight a4.
That's so annoying.
That's exactly what Eric's butting heads against. Bishop b4 maybe, and bishop b7, very sensible.
Okay. e4, and if you take, is e5 going to be played? Or?
Yep, my guess is this has got to be good for black, but look at the time again. There's just no time to find the accurate execution.
She's too quick and too strong. Deadly combination. I'm looking at knight g4 check and just trying to mate on the h file.
That g1 score's covered. I like it.
Doesn't quite work though, but I mean, this looks shaky. Bishop c3, you have a tempo, and then rook d1.
Bishop c3,
You have to attack this rook and then put a rook on d1 to protect this knight.
There's no other choice.
I don't see another choice. And she's thinking. So this is the right moment to think. Maybe she should have thought, last move or whatever, but at least she's stopping, pausing, and trying to figure it out.
Bishop there she finds it. Clutch move here by Alina. Rook f2. The game's definitely not over yet.
Oh, bishop g3 check and the f4 pawn, but then I have knight takes f4.
Knight f6 constantly in the picture. Knight e7 check.
Knight f6 doesn't work because I have knight takes f6. But knight e7, you're absolutely right. That is. Wait, just king
g1 or king h1.
Yeah, I didn't know which square to go to. 5 seconds for Eric. He makes
queen f3.
Nice
g6
move.
and e6 slight.
93. You win a piece. You take on h5. Don't take it. Oh, I didn't like taking on d8 first. Queen f3. You have queen f3.
Queen f3.
Oh, that's so nice.
What a move.
That's even
using
nicer.
the back rank. What a brilliant move there by Alina. Eric's still fighting. Again, that boss. They've chopped his legs off. Nope, he's still in the game. But just too much activity here for Alina. And of course, the extra piece. This is pretty easy to win.
Knight d4 check. And as long as you don't blunder anything, as you're pointing out, it just should be, look at this, bishop to c5. Taking up squares, don't give any activity.
And just
e6
a bust
check. Wait, bishop. No, there's no bishop check.
Oh.
Wait.
Careful, king f6 wins.
Ooh, knight f4 ran to g5.
Cutting it close, but now knight f8, knight h7.
And just take everything.
And now everything collapses here.
Wait, bishop takes g5? Just go for that last step.
Yeah, push that pawn.
And, okay, Alina has 23 seconds. And there's no hope here for Eric. Get a queen. Okay.
Queen B against queen b3 pre-move. What a very savvy move there by Eric. Maybe Alina would pre-move queen b3, but she's on top of that. What a game.
Alina now up 1 point as we're down under 18 and a half minutes left. We've just over 18 minutes remaining. Alina up 1 point. Plenty of time for Eric Rosen. It's just a one-game match. And again, just to remind everybody, if you're in the middle of a game and the clock hits 0 for the overall match, they finish that game. So it's not that, if they're in the middle of the game, the match is not over, they finish that game. So even if Eric is down 1 point, or if Alina goes down 1 point, and there's, say, 12 seconds left, as long as they get to start that game before the match clock is over, there's still a chance.
Just right now, like in football, you finish the play.
Exactly. And Eric is playing these sort of, it looks kind of like those, in some ways, those Kara-Khan lines where it's an exchange on d5, but there's a pawn d6 rather than on d5.
G5 by Alina, very interesting move. Opening up a G6 square for her knight or her bishop. Now, it could backfire because her king side is beefed up by all of those pieces. This is about equal. And now knight c4, though. I'm not sure about c6, and I'm not sure about Eric's play. It seems a little bit too passive for Bullet.
Yeah, that knight f1 move, going backwards instead of just attacking d6. Some discovery, knight h4. I was looking at knight h4, trying to take on f3 with check as an intermezzo. But now queen c2 is a good move, and knight e7. So moving backwards.
Bit of a cat and mouse game. They're kind of testing the waters. I would try to bank on getting my knight to f5 here if I were Eric. Maybe bishop takes g6. Maybe Alina will take with a pawn, though, and then threaten rook takes f3.
And if you get the f file open, the knight comes into f4. It seems like you're picking up momentum. f5, g4, an idea. c4 comes in right now. It's timely for Eric, kicking that knight back. But here comes that knight. Can even go into e4 followed by a d5 push and saying, hey, what are you doing? I'm the one who has more space. My rooks are on better fives. Look at this rook on d1. The f rook is better here, clearly, because now it supports an eventual g4. Just keep on pushing on that side of the board. The knight on f3 moves to d2 because the e5 squares under black square. And Danya, I'm loving the way this is taking form for Alina here.
Well, to borrow your term, Robert, the bishop on h2 just entombed by those pawns. Very elegant way that Alina's put her knights on f5 and f6. I wouldn't do anything rash here. d5 is tempting, but it allows knight c5. I would just play sensibly and practically. Knight e8. Okay, so she's reinforcing the knight on f5. Still, great position for black. Easier to play. She's swinging her knight around to e6, attacking that loose pawn. b6, covering the c5 square. Maybe Alina's preparing d5 after all.
She is. And bishop look at that, bishop g1. What a sad move. f3, there's knight g3 check at the very least.
But maybe white should have done that anyway. But now Eric getting his knight d5.
Rook c1. Rook c1. Watch out for that c6 pawn.
Rook f6 maybe.
Knight e5 after rook f6. So knight e6 going after d4 return. I mean, black has the better bishop, but with so many trades happening, it does feel like white should be able to get out of this. But look at the time, 6 seconds. He got his move off, but is d4 still just hanging here?
That's what Alina's thinking. d4 takes, and knight c6. Oh my goodness, what is going on here? Queen
takes
c4.
c4. Knight b3
My gosh, and rook d8, rook d1 is just devastating. Knight d2, knight f1 there as well.
Yeah, but don't count Eric out because he's about to steal the b6 pawn.
That is one thing we've noticed in this match. Never count him out. Rook d1 though.
Rook b5. Rook b5. There it is.
d4.
Oh, nice find because I was
king h2, even knight g3.
Ooh, knight g3 is so beautiful.
And oh my gosh, she found it. Look at that. Knight e2.
Bishop f2.
Oh my god.
Mate.
What a
find. That was gorgeous.
Absolutely beautiful. It would just boom, boom, boom with like 1 second on each move.
That was unbelievable tactical vision by Alina Kashlinskaya. We're going to have to ask her about that, what she's been doing to work on her tactics, because she found it all pretty instantly. And Eric, now he has his offbeat position, starting from a Budapest. He's going after the pawn. He's going to take e5, this double c pawns. Danya, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I firmly believe that in bullet chess, having double isolated pawns is one of the worst things possible.
Yes, exactly, because that's like driving a bus. It's very hard to handle. It's not like white is worse per se, but in bullet, you want to be able to make decisions very fast. And when you have a weak pawns, that already gives your opponent an easy plan of attacking them. So she does have the two bishops. She has some kingside play here. I just can't get it. That was absolutely savage. And that would be beautiful even in a classical game. And here we have it. The pawn on c4 collapses. So you called it, Robert. This is looking very bad, though, for Alina.
As somebody who's played the Gingy Indian from the black side countless times, I just love the feeling of going after a clear target. Whereas white's like, I have the two bishops. I know I should be doing well. But then you just keep an eye out. Wait, what about those double pawns? What about those double pawns?
Exactly.
And here comes knight b5. A good move. Just
rook c8.
Pawn,
Eric with a very, very strong opening here after that debilitating loss. The knight's going to just plant itself on e5. Easy game for black. Bishop c6 can follow. He can double in the e file. That's what he does. No target squares for Alina. It seems like she has some play on the king side, but it's going to be very hard to whip up any sort of counterplay. Her position's close to collapsing, not to mention she's down a pawn.
And I love that Eric has delayed c5 because it must be so tempting to make that move. But then the d6 pawn does feel a little weak. Knight e6. Just put that knight in e6. Maybe there's going to be bishop d7. You have to retreat, but try to put that knight in e6. Okay, here comes the queen.
And knight d3 crusher.
Yeah, knight d3, forking.
Oh, Eric missing it, another chance.
Man. And there it is.
Just
queen e2?
Collapse.
No, queen e2, b5.
b5, nice. Reinforcing the queen. Very nice move by
How about
Eric.
rook h4, queen h5? Can I get away with something like that?
You got to try that. And bishop f4, bishop takes h6. The problem is, Eric, his time management looked better in this game. Alina trying something here along the g file, but anything wins here. c5 is the one try, just winning e4.
I like that. Bishop takes d6. Oh, you're going to be down a piece, right? So bishop d6 doesn't get you enough. And all right, this should be straightforward for him, but he's going to be down 1 point still. And we're getting into 12 minutes left in the match. When do these games start feeling like must wins? This one I felt like was a must win, but now that if he converts this, he'll only be down 1 point Does the next game become a must-win, or when do you take your chance?
Down after 10 minutes, I think it starts being a must-win. I mean, it's basically a must-not-lose. Some games you can afford to draw, but gotta say this is a clutch performance by Eric here with the black pieces, keeping his composure. Budapest Gambit, he played aggressively enough, and his time management was better. So definitely clutch. And just very briefly, huge shout out to over 8,000 people watching on multiple platforms. We've got almost 8,000 on Twitch alone. So thank you, folks. Hope your seatbelts are tightly fastened. These last 10 minutes, Robert, are going to be as fascinating as this entire match has been.
And it's been a roller coaster. And if I were going to, bishop f4, watch out, the e5 pawn falls. That is a tactical shot that Alina needed.
H5,
and rook takes g3. And rook takes g3. I like that idea, though.
And rook
simplify,
g4,
simplify. He has 6 seconds left.
Yeah, you never count rook d5.
Rook d5, bring that rook in.
Yeah, but rook d3 is a buzzkill. And now before he just pushes his pawn. The thing is, the king is safe, but she's trying anything wins here.
King h6. It just looks a little scarier than it is.
It does.
And rook c5.
The pawns are too fast, and there's too many of them.
Rook d4, nice move, winning the g4 pawn.
Very clinical.
And, tricky, but there's king f6 check, and you win the rook on e5.
Alina trying.
To do her best Eric impression.
Exactly.
And yeah, this has been exciting stuff. c5 by Alina. So she's taking a more aggressive approach against the London. She stopped this bishop g4 stuff, which she was doing in previous games. There it is. I spoke too soon. Here comes bishop g4. And Eric is so good in the London. So Alina has found her way in some of the games.
Don't take queen a5. Queen a5 with the beast.
Oh, no.
Oh, you jinxed him.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry, Eric Rosen. You know we're
all
friends.
Your faults.
Oh, please don't revoke our friendship. I'm so sorry, Eric.
Oh, my goodness.
He walked right into it, and Alina is so tactically alert today.
Yeah, she just had and that's a very easy thing to miss. And Eric resigns very wisely, I should say, because now this is a must-win. We've entered must-win territory. If he loses one more game, it becomes virtually insurmountable.
Wow. And talk about just being on form in the bullet. Alina saw that so quickly.
She did.
And you were about to say it. I was busy jinxing Eric Rosen. And then she plays it, and it's like,
It takes two. I mean, and let me just say, that's not always easy to see in a bullet game. I've missed that particular tactic tens of times because you just don't realize, it's a quiet Caro Kann. All of a sudden, there's a win. And Alina piling up on that c6 pawn again, bishop g4. This is already looking very unpleasant for Eric once again.
How come you said tens of times, not dozens of times? Like, don't people usually say dozens there?
Because I said it because I actually wanted you to notice that.
Okay.
That's the only reason I said that.
Bishop f5, rook c7. Doesn't really help. So is black going to get f6? That's one of those critical questions here. f6 now for sure.
He does. Maybe she should leave her knight on e5.
I like that idea. Because h5 is risky, but if you're playing for a win and then the e3 pawn.
Got to do it.
Something you have to do. I don't really see how white responds at knight f2, or maybe go back to e5. No, actually, that would have been a perfect time to go back to e5.
Oh, exactly. Especially now that black was weakened even further. This is not looking good for her. Although it's only a pawn, as you said, Robert, that move h5, it does weaken black's king side permanently. Maybe rook e1, rook e8.
But there's bishop e4 ideas that might hurt you at some moment.
Yep.
So Eric is playing quickly and well here. This is probably the best bullet game he's put together thus far. Knight d1 is a good. Wait, is that rook trapped?
Is
rook
it?
e6, f5.
My goodness. Or bishop f5, rook e2, f5 is good.
Oh my gosh.
Rook e. You can't even.
Wait. How about rookie?
You can't sacrifice it in a good way. That's the problem. If you could somehow gain these positions, maybe rook takes d3.
I'm so sorry, Eric. I keep jinxing you. I'm so sorry.
Unacceptable, Robert.
I feel so bad now. Even though the commentator's curse is just not a real thing. But whatever. We'll pretend it is just for this match. Eric Rosen, I spoke too soon.
Every time they say Steph Curry's free throw percentage, he misses a free throw. You know how it is. And now f5, just a buzzkill move. Look at that knight on f8, completely dominated by the pawn on f5. Eric doing what he can. He's keeping the bishop. But now a3, he's got to take.
It does go to show, though, a pawn 3 squares from a knight dominates it. This pawn f5, as you pointed out, it covers the vital scores. Bishop d7, rook e7 traps the queen. So h4.
Bishop d6.
h4. Okay. Play not anymore, but h4, queen h5.
He blundered c7, but Alina's move is also good enough.
Oh, bishop d7 after this, I guess, but then...
but now dc, and this is just...
Bishop d6, that's it.
Rook e7. I don't know about that queen trade. And Alina, with over half of her time left, I would slow down a little. You can take twice on c5 there also.
And rook e8, followed by rook c8. And as you said, you can take choice.
And bleeding the clock here, not a bad idea. C5 is hanging. This is just collapsing for Eric. Rook c7.
So if you're, Eric is going to have to resign, and he probably should resign now.
He should resign right now. Because I would say the importance of having, as every second counts now. This match is not over, but only if he resigns. He can't afford to spend another minute here.
Rook a7. And he's hoping for bishop takes g6.
He is, but she's going to see it and go king g3.
And then knight g4. That bishop's trapped.
Still, a4.
Oh, I was going to go a4 as black, so you beat me too.
Ooh, I waited a second. Though. There was no rush.
Oh my gosh, he might survive. It's 93. You go after the g pawn, then bring your... Oh, 93. I guess he has to bring the king first.
Rook g7, though. Rook b7, she wants to...
Knight c6? Is she going to take on e4?
No, CD, rook d4. It's too many pawns. King f4, king g5.
Yeah, too many
rook
pawns.
h6,
but if anyone can hold this game, it's Eric Rosen. Knight f6.
Exactly. We have seen some incredible tenacity. There's just too many pawns here. King G, anything wins here.
a7.
95.
Oh,
nice she doesn't miss the fork.
And he barely got that move off. And oh my gosh, just
a7.
Oh, she's pushing the h pawn. She has so much time left.
I know, 20 seconds. Just plenty of time to think through these moves. Just check for forks. Eric's got to resign.
She's really good at both.
He's going to be king a8.
Oh my gosh. If king a8, that would be amazing.
I know what he's waiting for.
He's waiting for queen takes c7 and then going to go king a8.
But I think she's prepared for that.
Yes, that was her preparation, was watching Eric's bullet resourcefulness. And now he resigns, and there's only 5 minutes and 25 seconds left. I don't know if he has enough time. He needs to win these games and win them just immediately. He can't wait.
He's just got to go for the throat here.
Alina is a brilliant bullet player.
She's made the adjustments. Ever since the 3-minute portion, it's like a rocket that's taken off. She's made all these decisions so fast. And she's had a time advantage throughout. And not only that, she's done it without sacrificing quality, which has really propelled her to the top of this match.
And she flat out blundered that pawn on e3. And Eric was in the driver's seat. And then he got his rook trapped. And after that, maybe he should have resigned immediately and just said, okay, this game is frustrating. I'm over with it. But right now he's going all in with the rook on the g file, the bishop on e5, hoping to barrel through, get a checkmate. Look at that, knight e4.
94, you can't take on e5 because of knight f6. And it's easy for me to sit here in my armchair and say, well, he should have resigned. Obviously, we take our hats off to Eric for incredible resourcefulness in every position. But here, this is just collapsing in where knight takes e5. The wheels are coming off. The train is derailing. The Rosen Express is not looking rosy right now.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs for all the Eric Rosen fans, of which there are so many. And unfortunately for him, IM Kashlinskaya has proven to be a very sturdy competitor. Honestly, I've been extremely impressed with their play.
Me too.
Eric, too. Eric he's not just been resourceful, he's come up with brilliant ideas. That knight f5, where he lost that pawn in b4 in that game and then won the exchange at e7, and other games earlier on when he was playing those London system type lines, opening the h file. It felt like he had a good hold on things, but just like Alina did against Chess Explained, where it seemed like things weren't exactly going her way in the 5-minute. In the 3-minute and then in the bullet, that's where Alina feels like she's at her strongest.
Exactly.
Wait, b5.
And she's not missing a single chance. Every time she has a little tactic, she sees it, and she sees it fast. Look at the speed of conversion here.
This is
tough.
And shout out to Chess Explained in the chat, by the way. I see you there, Christoph. Thank you for joining us. I know you had a fun match with Alina, and probably you're rooting for it, right? Isn't that what happens when you lose to somebody? You always root for them to win.
You can't beat him, join him.
Precisely. Thank you, Kevin Durant. And so f4, just go for something. But Eric,
don't say his name because you know what happened. He was on the Warriors. I will never forgive him. So that is the name that cannot be mentioned. Just for your knowledge, Robert, for future matches.
Okay, I'll make sure
anything but Kevin Durant.
Okay, cool. Just making sure that I have your permission now. And rook e5 check. The problem is they can't even go king d5 like you'd like to because then c5 hangs, and now c5 is certainly hanging.
Oh, Eric trying his best to take you on. I say, look at that. Every little chance he's squeezing it out like a lemon that's squeezing and squeezing. But the problem is, again, the time is ticking down 2 minutes. This is mathematically impossible, even if he miraculously ends up winning this game.
And look at that tricky move, king e6. Because rook c5 check was the idea to pick up the a5 pawn. So I would just take that a pawn at some moment. soon because otherwise, Rook C5 now.
And she does.
Rook takes
and I would even milk the clock here as much as possible, but with 4 points up, that's just it.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
This is it. This is Alina Kashlinskaya winning the match. Shout out to Eric Rosen because, well, he's a worthy competitor. He's proven that in both of his matches thus far. He's a great streamer. He does amazing instructional videos.
Absolutely.
And, well, Alina Kashlinskaya, just hats off to her because she has really been a very pleasant addition to the IM GM Speed Chess Championship. And she's very close to her GM title, right? She's like 24-90 something.
Yep.
FIDE
and
rated.
She's shown herself capable of beating the best. So as you say, Robert, we love to roast these IMs. That's part of our job description. But at the end of the day, I mean, both of these players are such great competitors and such great people, honestly, that it's very hard to, it's impossible to pick sides. Both deserve the highest praise for the fight that they have put in. And for the very positive impact that both of these players make in the chess community.
And I wonder now because I feel like Alina Kashlinskaya is a name that might have gone under the radar. Oh, H pawn, wrong colored bishop. So play bishop e3 and take with the H pawn.
HG.
Nice move.
And H6. This should be lost. Yeah, just king G4.
Yep, push that pawn. And now all of a sudden Alina wins. But I was going to say, Danya, is I feel like Alina is a name that was probably not really thought of as a potential winner of this event.
Mm-hmm.
And she's proven herself not just to be a dark horse, but just to be an absolute just monster. Because Kristoff was a tough first round pairing for her. She beat that one out. Now she's +4 against Eric. The match is closer than I would say the score indicates, but she is
Definitely.
+4 and maybe even +5 if she wins this game. So just props to Alina Kashlinskaya.
And most impressive, perhaps, her speed in the bullet section. When you don't play a lot of bullet throughout your life, it's hard to just turn up the speed like that. But she's managed to do just that. I wonder what kind of training she's done before the match, which is something we might want to ask her during the interview phase. But props to Alina. I mean, just no words. She definitely has proven herself capable of winning this whole thing and being a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and look at these bishops for her right now. I mean, the knight on c7, not a good piece. The bishop on c8, trying to figure out where it belongs. And on the other hand, white is just staring down at the black king side, either by trading the dark square bishops, maybe throwing knight e to g5, going after the other diagonal and the e6 square. And she just castles. I mean, just a very practical decision. Take on g7 first, maybe? Or, yep.
Bishop e4. And this is officially the last game of the match. So Eric, of course, trying to score the consolation goal. We know that some of the prize money is tied up in the actual score. So he definitely has incentive to finish strong. And as you said, Robert, this is definitely closer than the match score reveals. It's been another epic match.
And shout out to BJH for the donation, calling this a sick match. We really appreciate the donations go to the players. So for anybody who is in the giving mood, well, the players receive any donations that you make. So shout out to you, BJH, and thank you to everybody who's been tuning in, following. And as I said earlier, not only is this match not over, we have this final game, but we have the interviews after the match, and then we'll be back in something like 4 hours because we have Gotham Chess, Levy Rosman taking on Teddy Coleman this evening. So it's going to be a very fun day. We're only just getting started. And in this one, unfortunately for Eric Rosen, this is the final game, and he's also down 30 seconds almost on the clock.
Again, the time management just incredible. And we will indeed be back, so go nowhere. Once again, we've got over 8,000 people on Twitch. We hope everybody's staying safe. And we hope that chess is a bit of a tool to keep one's sanity in this time. So thanks again to everybody. Don't go anywhere. We got so much intrigue ahead. We got a lot of interesting questions to ask both of these competitors during the interview phase. Rook g3. Just piling up.
Rook g6. Wait, Rook takes f5 as a free roll.
Oh, my goodness. This is winning too. And Alina finishing on another win.
She finished with a flex. And props to Alina Kashlinskaya. Danya, you and I are going to take a quick break. We're just going to get the tech set up for an interview with both players. Everybody stay tuned. You will hear the players' thoughts on a very exciting match that came down to the bullet and was decided by Alina's mouth speed and her tactical vision. We'll be right back. and we welcome both competitors here after what was a very exciting match. Eric Rosen, our apologies that the match did not go your way. Alina, congratulations. And Alina, let's start with you. What did you do to prepare for this match? How many tactics did you do? Because you seemed laser sharp when it came to finding various tactics throughout the match.
Well, I just wanted to say that I was blundering a lot in this match, but I don't know, maybe we are discussing different matches. No, I actually didn't solve so much of tactics. I'm just having my usual training nowadays. I, of course, checked Eric's games, and I also even got some messages from the people I don't know who were telling me that Eric is a very tricky player and I should be careful because he is definitely playing not in my style, so I should be really careful. And I was actually surprised that I thought that my chances would be in 5 minutes games. But it turned out that in this time control, I was just being outplayed totally. And then somehow I saw that in 1 minute games, it would be vice versa, that I would have no chances. And somehow I was just lucky there, I think.
Eric, on your end, when you went into this match, what was your thought process like? Was there an area, a time control that you thought that you would be able to pile up some points? I mean, did you expect to go out to that 2-game lead in the 5-minute portion, for example?
Yeah, I actually thought I would be I'd be more of a favorite in the Bullets, but I don't know. I guess I like the positions so much from these 5-minute games that I just wanted to think for maybe a bit too long, and then it was just hard to adjust to the 3-minute and then the Bullet portion. So I know it was a problem for me in the previous match too. Just time management. Unfortunately, was not able to adjust kind of quickly enough.
Well, Alina, once again, congratulations to you. A question about your previous match. Did you take any sort of lessons away from your previous match against Christoph? Any adjustments that you consciously made on the basis of the match that you applied successfully to this match?
Well, after the match, my husband told me that finally you should work on this Reti opening and everything. So you had a great lesson finally to work on openings. But when I checked Eric's games, I prepared against him, but mostly on openings was my work done. And here I just knew that with Eric it will be more difficult in a way that there will be fight till the end. I saw Eric's games against Elizabeth, and I saw that there was a fight till the last move. So I was ready that it will be a tough match.
Absolutely. And Eric, there was one game where you were down a queen, but you had a knight left, and you were going from A8 to C7. Be honest with us. Were you trying to set up a queen takes C7, king E8, and get a stalemate again?
Yeah, of course. I mean, she wasn't falling for it, though. I think I revealed too many secrets from the previous match. But yeah, that was the only hope. She wasn't even like taking the knight.
Right. Yeah, because this lesson I learned from your games, not from mine.
Right.
We were impressed with your resilience throughout, Eric. So, I mean, you had a couple of games where we assumed the game was over. There was one where you didn't quite pull it out in the end, but I think you were down in exchange and you somehow got it down to a position where you had a knight against 2 pawns. So definitely kudos to you for reinforcing how resourceful a player you are.
Thanks. Yeah, tried my best, but she did a very good job of converting winning positions. So it was hard to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were both very impressed, and we thank you so much again for playing this match. And everyone was on the edge of their seats. We had so many viewers rooting both of you on. And Alina, do you have any thoughts? I mean, your next round opponent isn't quite up yet. Excuse me, I can't speak. I'm just tired from this long match. Your next opponent is not determined yet. Do you have a preference with whom you play, or it doesn't matter? You're going to prepare the same way regardless?
I don't even know what is the choice for me for the next round. So after the match will finish, I will check whom I will be playing.
Okay. Well, I like it, taking it match by match. But again, Eric, our apologies. The match didn't go your way. And Alina, congratulations on another fantastic win. You move on to the semifinals of the IM GM Speed Chess Championship.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Awesome match.
Much.
All right. And as we see in the bracket now, after that match, all is said and done, Alina Kashlinskaya moves on into the semifinals of this tournament here. And Danya, and another impressive performance by her, she awaits the winner of the match between Levy Rosman and Teddy Coleman.
Well,
so,
if only this match took place tonight and we would be commentating it, that would be pretty nice. Wait a minute. We are. And that match starts in right around 4 hours from now. So I am just, every one of these matches has its own dynamic, has its own narrative, and every single one has kept us on the edge of our seats. So I'm very excited to see the evening match. And of course, tomorrow, John against Lawrence, Carissa against Greg. These are just high profile matches. And this I Am Not a GM Speed Chess Championship has this, has shown one display of incredible fighting chess after another.
It has indeed. Well, Danya, you and I have had a fun day. We will continue the action later tonight, as you said, in about 4 hours from now. So for all of you who've tuned in, thank you so much for your generous support of Chess.com and the I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship. For those of you watching on Chess TV, Twitch, YouTube, etc., keep on watching, keep enjoying the chess. These IMs are producing a better show than you could possibly ask for. So we're going to enjoy more chess later today. But for now, we're going to sign off. Everybody stay tuned. Enjoy more chess. I don't know where the raid is going. But until then, have a great Wednesday afternoon if you're here in New York, or if you're in Europe, have a lovely night.